contestation. I wanted to look back. I wanted to look at how that actually went. Game number 1, Vico Venoflixi actually won off spawn, and they got second. And then for the rest of the day, it was looking really, really rough for Vico Venoflixi. And I can sort of now see why Feradoxis thought, you know, I'm actually going to con them in the finals here. So much so, it was a rough day that Vico Venoflixi actually dipped. They went on out to Lone Wolf Lair. I think it was game number 5. They thought, we've had enough of this. So really interested to see how this is going to play out today. And even when I was looking back at some of the games, I was trying to look at, maybe if they get a south burst, Vico Venoflixi can do well. Maybe it's a north burst. Every single situation, it did seem like Feradoxis' team were looking victorious. And I'm really, really intrigued whether they can bring that now in the major finals. I know Vico Venoflixi have seemingly been doing some interesting stuff off spawn 11. So what are they going to bring?
Look, there's different things they can bring, for sure. I think a lot of people will be worried about how this one plays out for them. There's a lot of people who maybe aren't too worried. I've seen people still predicting them to top 10 and do really well, even if they are contested. I'd say to those people, I wouldn't worry too much. Now, I won't say too much, but maybe wouldn't worry too much. I think, I've spoken to Veno today, I've spoken to Raz today. They've cooked. That's all I'll say. They've cooked. I think if they can pull off what they're trying to pull off this weekend, it'll be one of the greatest Grands performances we've seen in EU history. And that's why I'll leave it.
You're such a tease. And so, because I know I'm not going to be able to get blood from this stone, let's hear what Veno himself told me at the start of the FNCS competitive year.
I want to win 4 out of 4 this year. 3 FNCSs in EU and globals, preferably. I mean, I like to set high standards, but...
So we know that Veno wants to set high standards, but he was telling you, Levin, on Fantasia just a few weeks ago that the mental game for these guys, this is the thing holding them back. And I feel like with the season they've had so far, it's really going to be something that they have to face down today.
Yeah, let's just call it how it is. Coming into this season, they had the wrong read. They couldn't figure things out, right? Just the nature of them switching around drop spots so much, could tell anybody that, right? One of the big benefits of winning the first major of the year we always talk about is being the best team, coming into Major 2, being able to claim the best drop spot, because nobody wants to con a team who's already qualified globals because they've got nothing to lose or whatever, right? So the fact that they haven't been able to do that, like their counterparts Malibuca and them were able to do, it's sort of a sign of weakness for this team. One that I think could maybe spill out when we know they have some emotional players on the team, right? Vico and Veno famously known for being quite emotional players. I do wonder how that will affect them going into these next 12 games, Minnie.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a really, really important off-spawn fight for them. And in Major overall, I think the implications that this could have when it comes to global championships, if they do have a rough off-spawn here, you don't want to be known as a team that aren't that great at fighting off-spawn. You don't want to be conned when it comes to those big events. So I think if they can improve their off-spawn aura here today, maybe win a lot of the majority of the games, if they can use some of those strategies that you were talking about, it's going to help them not only, of course, in today and, of course, tomorrow's finals, all the way up to the global championships as well. It's going to pay dividends.
Well, Mini Miner, one of the things that can really make or break a trio, regardless of how strong their aim is or their in-game chemistry, is how they're dealing with Surge. So why don't you take us through some of the examples of how we're expecting to see trios play it today?
Yeah, well, if you guys remember last season, we spoke about how the Storm Surge strategies around the finals last season were very much in clusters, right? We talked about how Seaport City, lots of teams rotating in there. We had Queasy and Momsy fighting out of spawn, which gave us the green light for so many of our south teams to rotate up to the north there. And we even saw it down there towards the south as well. So many teams in these little clusters fighting it out to try and get Storm Surge instead of playing inside of the bases. And that's something that we might expect to see here as well, Levin, in these sort of different areas of the map, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I think today we will see those big clusters again of just like 5 teams running together to get Surge. Because, yeah, it's very difficult. The Surge thresholds this weekend, I think, are going to be insanely high. But I think one of the first areas we're going to see that happen is Magic Moss's Mini.
Yeah, Magic Mosses. I mean, we talk about how these black markets can have such a big impact on Storm Surge, and so many other teams identify that as well. Of course, you can get those heals inside of these black markets with your gold, and these sort of act as a beehive, if you like. So many bees around and all these different players. This is the center point, the focal point for so many teams to fight it out. And very similarly to what we saw last major, where lots of teams were coming together into this one area and fighting it out, getting some tags from long range and then closing on in. But the benefit of it this season element that we didn't have last season is that those black markets are able to regenerate your health, right? There's so many med kits there. There's those splashes in particular at the Magic Mosses one. So what we see a lot of teams do, go in for the fight, even play a little bit of Storm as well. And then when they need to rejuvenate, regenerate their health, they can go back into the black market, get all of the heals that they need, and then continue on with their game. And because of the amount of white heals in the game at the moment, Storm is definitely a factor. And that's what we're seeing so many teams do. So definitely somewhere to keep an eye out up there in Magic Mosses today.
Yeah, we're seeing so many teams play Storm. We'll get back to Storm though, because I think this is also going to happen in a lot more than just Magic Mosses, right? Obviously, we see, you know, the meta in the new season makes it so that there's reason for people to sort of cluster in that area and fight. But just Fortnite basics, a lot of the time, it's going to be about off-spawn fights, right? And teams being contested off-spawn and the teams in that area being able to rotate in and third-party those fights. And I think that's one thing we're going to see here for sure. We have Outlaw Oasis, Crime City, and the split south of Outlaw Oasis all contested today. Shiny Shafts, Canyon Crossing, and Shogun Solitude are gonna be having a field of it. They're gonna be licking their lips. iDrops Trio is one of the teams landing at Shiny. You know, I know Canyon Crossing has Geras' team. Both those teams have done really well this season, and I think they're gonna do really well today. In particular, iDrops team, right? When you look at how they play it, obviously they rotate from the north down to the south, and it means they actually have that natural elevation, right? So when these fights are taking place and you have a bunch of different teams here, at times there'll be literally 5 teams here. You know, they're able to actually just sit on these hills and tag from afar, and then if they get big damage, they can close on in. You know, Dinas' trio with Geras, they're able to do similar. I think one of the key things here is, right, the example just seen on screen, this was from the group stage last weekend, when there was literally only one team landing at Crime City, one team landing at Outlaw Oasis, and one team landing to the South Split. Today, those spots are contested. So there's literally double the teams there, double the chaos, double the action, double the opportunities, I think, for the teams in that area to get their surge.
Yeah, so much opportunity for those teams to sort of roam around the area, right? iDrops, Sky and Scroll, they did it very well last major, wasn't quite as much action. Now they're able just to do that, roaming in that sort of area, keep that elevation, as you said, and now it's finding a lot more success for them. So that's a key element for their strategy.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned roaming there, right? Roaming obviously is a great way, but not every team has to roam. Some teams find success without roaming. So let's take a look at last season's map, right? Because last season we had Seaport City contested. We had Queasy's team there, Momsy's team there. And so we literally had the Shining Span team, the Rolling Blossom Splits team, and the Kappa Kappa Factory team at times rotating into Seaport to try and third party that fight whenever it would drag out. And so we'd have the 5 teams there. It was so chaotic. This season though, Queasy's uncontested. They ain't got to worry about that. And so those teams in that area aren't rotating into the POI, right? Because nobody's going to try run into Swizzy and Mustache on purpose, at least. And so those teams have to find their surge elsewhere, right? And fortunately today, for some of those teams, Kappa Kappa Factory is contested. So there's going to be a lot of fighting in the storm there. And it allows Queasy's team to actually set up just outside Seaport, right? So we often see them set outside Seaport. And what it means is that when the zone pulls far, like in this game here, they're actually sitting in like a really good medium priority position, where once all these teams finish their fighting, finish collecting their surge mini, they're gonna have to eventually rotate in, right? They can't just sit in Storm forever, as much as this season maybe would make them think they can. And so eventually, once they rotate in onto that Storm line, you know, Swizzy and Mustache are sat in a perfect position to just sit and farm those teams on the edge of the circle, while Queasy sits in the POI, gathers a bunch of heal, because, spoiler alert, they like to play a bit of Storm this season.
Yeah, they do. And I think what's great about this is a lot of teams would just sort of stay there on the edge. But what this team do, they identify the fact that they need to try and stay ahead of all of these teams that are in that lower priority position. So you can see them here on the map. They're ahead of all those teams that are just on the edge of that storm sort of area. And you can see them in that sort of medium priority position yet again. You can see them looking back at all of those teams rotating in, getting so much storm surge. And of course, they could just rotate straight in there if they wanted to, but they understand all of those teams down towards the south. And of course, that Kappa Factory now today is going to be contested, so there's going to be even more teams that are going to be rotating up through that way. And this is where they take prime advantage of all of those teams in that lower priority area. They're just going to allow them to rotate past them. They're just going to sit here and say, okay, we're going to use this opportunity. We got so much surge earlier. You can see them even taking out Bevies and Della right here. And because of all that loot they got, because of Queasy stacking those heals and gathering all of that loot earlier on, it gives them the prime opportunity to, instead of just rotate straight into the zone like a lot of teams will, they're able to play the Storm, which is we're seeing so many teams doing this season. And the best part about it, only the finest IGLs in the world will see this, is this massive wrap all the way around Levin, be able to play all of their heals and get in a perfect position in the zone.
Yeah, they wrap all the way into Storm. A big wrap there as well, right? There was a couple teams even in Storm ahead of them, but it doesn't matter. They have the heals to outlast long enough to get into a great position where now they're on dead side, right? So now they have access to dead side. They can now get into that next zone even easier, and we'll see them do that exactly here. You know, over Harlow's teams maybe slightly ahead of them, a couple steps, but because the zone's opening up, they're still fine to be able to get in just fine. And in that game, actually, it was the game from groups where once they get into zone there, they build up for height, win the game. And we've seen that story before, but the bit before that for Queasy's trio has just been so perfect, and the culmination of all the things that worked this season.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really argue with the way that Queasy plays this game, and I can't wait to see how well his trio and all our others do this weekend. But I especially can't wait to see which ones are going to be taking one of those 5 spots up for grabs in the Fortnite Global Championship in September, because as we've already discussed, Malibu for Ping and Wox and Vico, Venom and Flixie, they already booked their spots back in Major number 1. So, Levin, let's see who's in your top 5 to make it.
Yes, I feel like I've gone maybe a bit predictable here, right? I think I look at, you know, some of the teams we already highlighted. We obviously mentioned Queasy already. We mentioned Cammy, Thomas, Dimash. I like Vanya, Pixie, and Marius's odds though, right? They were incredibly good last season. I think they've sort of just been a sneakily good team this season. Like, I've not seen too many people hyping them up, bigging them up too much. But they are a team that I think you'd expect to get one of those spots, right? You know, especially if Vico's trio and Malibu's trio can be in that sort of top 5, then it sort of moves down into top 7. Is Vanya's trio a trio that should be getting top 7 in this lobby? Absolutely, all day long. So my list here is, I think, a bit of a safe list.
I think that Mini Miner's list is probably not going to be that much different, so let's see it. Mini, explain yourself. That number 5 trio.
Yeah, it's funny because we actually made these lists separately. We weren't copying each other. We literally had 4 of the same picks. The only difference is that Vanya's trio in my list has been swapped out for iDrop's trio in my list as well. And I think just the way that they're playing these off spawns, the way they're able to roam, we saw it in a little bit of success last major where they're able to roam around for their surge. We just broke it down. There's like 4 or 5 different contestations around, different teams that they can use for that. I think it's set up perfectly for them. They've been pretty poor while contested, but now they're uncontested. I'm expecting a big top 5, top 7 if they need that from this team. I think this is their time to do it, Levin.
No, I mean, you're right. The situation around them looks good, but I've just been burned by iDrop too many times in the past. Like, I predicted iDrop to do well, and then it doesn't go that way. So I'm staying away is my problem right now.
Same as me, to be honest. And
boys,
I'm sticking with him.
Do you mind if I make some predictions of my own? I feel like I've been learning from you guys
Really?
the past couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay, go on.
It's Frankie's
Pink, pink,
forecast.
pink.
Okay, so obviously similar things. Now, they decided in production that I look most like Queasy, so they've used a picture of him here, but obviously Queasy got to qualify this weekend with his trio. Now, I thought, bonjour tout le monde, j'ai besoin d'une équipe pensée. I needed to pick a French team, so Akira, Kurama, and Werex as well. Group 3, they won the first Victory Royale, and they did it with 17 eliminations. Werex was on fire. So I know it seems like I'm just farming here, but actually there's some thought behind this one. And also Chaptini and Scree as well, because I know that they're going to be contested by Tayson's trio, but historically I feel like that's a bit of a 50-50. But let's face it, if they need to flex to another drop spot, because they do get in trouble, they got Teeny on their team. They can do this. He's such an incredible fragger as well. Chap's got good fortune in finals. Levin, you're nodding, and I don't know if you're about to take the mick out of me or if you're agreeing.
Frankie, usually I sit here and I make fun of you and I laugh at you. But in this case, I actually think you're cooking a bit because, you know, Chap's trio contested is a tough spot to be in, but I do like them more than I like, I think, Tayson's trio in terms of who I think places better between the two. So it's a sneaky pick. But now I'm going to go back to flaming you and roasting you and making fun of you. You're like the biggest Pink supporter in the world, and you've predicted Akira's trio who, yes, they're not landing on Pink, but they're like the closest team to Pink who could have an impact on Pink negatively. Are you just a fake fan? Like, this is a bit random to me. Where's this come from?
I'm a storyteller, and the script I'm writing is that Pink's trio is the last to qualify for Leon. I think they're going to be there. I need them to be there. I want them to be there.
Not this major.
But yeah, I mean, Pink
what a
delivers
fan.
drama, Minnie.
Yeah.
What supporter you are.
Yeah, support. Pink's there crying.
Listen, I would love it if Pink made it through, but I didn't see him on either of your lists, and you're best mates with him, Livin. So.
True. But, you know, let's get to the game. You're putting me under pressure right now. I'm actually lost for words now.
Do you know what? I want the verdict from the commentators because I trust their opinion more than anyone. So, Taco and Takata, let's get game 1 underway, but also props to my list, yeah?
Pink, if you are watching, we are right there with you. The entire desk currently on Fraud Watch, but do not let them tilt your crown, King, because we know what you're capable of. You know what you're capable of. And for anybody that wants a battering session, Demon's Dojo is where they can find you. But we also know that Pink's team is not the only team that's competing in this Major 2 Finals weekend, Takata.
Oh yeah, too many big names. Look, we've been through the play-ins, we've been through the groups, but now, Taco, it is time to lock in for the major finals. The desk broke it down perfectly. So much incredible kind of off-spawn action that is going to will start off right in game number 1. And the good news is we don't have to wait long at all. So let's start off the EU FNCS major finals.
Things could definitely get pretty tricky here early on, but we'll just have to wait and see how day 1 actually plays out for all of our teams that are competing here. One saving grace, the silver lining on this weekend is knowing that they'll still have tonight to VOD, look things over, see where they might be able to work out some of the issues that they've encountered. But what I'm really expecting, Takata, is for that southwest section of the map, is somebody's got to figure something out and fast, because there is a lot of craziness that could take place.
Exactly, that's what we got our eyes on here to kick it off. We've got Mr. Savage kind of in a 50-50 contested on that snowy mountain down at the southwest. Masked Meadows as well, potentially contested. And, you know, Mini Miner was talking about Magic Mosses, how popular it is of a POI with that black market, the only black market to offer chug splashes and, you know, like the other ones, a good amount of heals to play out these early to mid games.
But that's also going to force other teams to kind of want to poke their head over possibly much earlier than what Gripe's team would definitely want to be dealing with, as Sangil, Jewel, and Tidy, they'll have to figure that one out later on. But Prax, Gripe, Glubshi, things are looking about as you would expect, not contested. So they're just trying to focus up, gathering what material they can, waiting for an opportunity to strike, because these teams are going to have to focus on their surge damage. A little bit of trouble brewing here, possibly at Outlaw Oasis. Strokey and Janus focus. They're all just trying to keep tabs on some of their neighbors in the area. But what's this? Vico, Veno, Flixie. This is not Masked Meadows. And it doesn't appear as if Janus' team had any idea for Strokey already going to be immediately eliminated. Vico now looking to close in with the rest of his team. This is not what anybody could have possibly expected here, and Janus just added to the count. 3 quick eliminations. You want to talk about surge? Vico, Veno, Flixie, they just manifested it so quickly.
Talk about surprises. They already got 4 elims on the board, Taco. Levin was talking about it. He said, I was speaking with BloodX. I was speaking with Veno. All I'm saying is they're going to do something different. They're going to do something to surprise you. And that is exactly what we have just witnessed. Finnick trying to do what he can to stay up here. But what I'm thinking, Taco, is, you know, they are on this kind of west side Outlaw Oasis part of the map. There's a lot more trios that are contesting each other as well, and not, you know, taking into account the uncontested ones that tend to look into this area for tags later on. But I mean, after Veno, Flixie, and Vico took out 4 players, they've already knocked out 2 trios, so they have more than enough surge and don't really have to worry about getting into these fights.
But for Juicy, Andy, and Finchak, you originally believed that your only opposition is going to be dealing with Janus, Focus, and for Strokey. Now knowing that there's a wild Veno just tossed into the mix potentially, really want to see whether or not that actually continues, because it almost is a little bit reminiscent of another player in this lobby's type of strategy. So Raz and Venom may have just cooked up something incredible. Early game success, though, still working out as far as Lone Wolf Lair. And Wax, Malabuka, Ping, they're kind of just waiting gauging whether or not someone's actually going to try and challenge them. Doesn't seem to be the case, though.
Now, I did see on the Elim feed, and we can see as well, Reason has an elimination, and I believe even Savage got a knock earlier on. It was onto Twy and Noms. I don't think I saw Awahalo getting eliminated, but it seems like they have kind of won that original off-spawn 50-50 here at the Mountain Split. And, you know, earlier on, we thought they might even get the southern side uncontested as well, but Cade and Ivan and his trio are landing there, so they're a little bit more limited on loot, but even so, they've got a lot of cars to work with. It's going to give them a lot of heals. It's going to give them potentially chug jugs, and now that they've started off with a couple of eliminations in terms of damage, I'm kind of excited to see how this continues playing out, even keeping in mind, Taco, that now, you know, Masked Meadows is probably uncontested, seeing that Vico Venoflixi decided not to go there, which might change up their surge plan a little bit.
Problem that was really starting to build, though, is what happens after the fact. Big Ben Tunnel, sure, you claim it initially, but you still have to deal with actually making it out. And with teams like Mixing, Kongbeg, Blaha holding down such a high elevation here at Shining Span. And we've seen notoriously a lot of surge bases kind of peaking up throughout the early game. So many teams just fully understanding the kind of advantages that can be provided from those high viewing perspectives. And Mixing, Kongbeg, Blaha, though, don't seem to have had much luck.
Yeah, I mean, they got 14th in the major finals last season, and they were at the same drop spot uncontested, so hopefully we'll see a similar performance this time around. Fovania, Marius, and Pixie. This is going to be an interesting one. A lot of people have high hopes for this trio. They've been performing incredibly well throughout the season in the divisional cups. And, you know, they have a very good shot as well to doing just as good as a performance here in the major finals. But to do so, you got to make it to the late game. And for that, you're going to have to get enough damage.
Gonna call a spade here, though, Takada. These teams are just interested in exchanging the initial blows from the safety of their surge bases. Everybody kind of just building up all of their heals. Marius, he's even got those small shield potions behind him. He's not that concerned about eating a little bit of return fire. As long as he's able to establish the damage that he needs to for his trio, that's what's going to set them up in the best position possible once they actually start making their way out of Flooded Frogs. But how things are currently shaping up really does appear as though trouble could be exactly what Artist Dexy and Huddy are looking for. Cheatin' currently on the escape route, but he's just being trailed too quickly. Huddy, Artist, just looking to close off every possible escape angle here, and now they're just gonna tackle 3x3 up against the walls. Still not able to break in just yet. Cheatin' finally going to be knocked and eliminated. That's 2 in total for Artist's team. Still hoping if they can find the last piece of Cheatin's team. But whether or not they get that final elimination, Takada, the damage has already been done. They got the damage that they needed.
That they did. It's interesting, though, because they were originally contesting Kappa Kappa, but they ended up just fighting it Hopeful. But if we look back at Ivan's trio, this is the trio landing directly south of Mr. Savage, and you know, they've got a pretty good drop spot, but in terms of loot, it's not the best in the game, so this fight could be crucial to them, Taco.
Things are never ideal, though, when you've got two teams kind of duking it out at Shogun Solitude. Hellfire just trying to make sure that he keeps tabs on his walls. Ivan still trying to apply a decent amount of pressure here, but no luck so far. Doesn't want to get overzealous, doesn't want to find himself being double peaked in response. Cade trying to open up with a separate approach now. Strapped Hellfire Tripper, and they're making the right call, looking to play as tightly linked as possible. But still, Arion from above could be a serious threat here. But so long as Strapped and Hellfire are sitting together, they are not going to let Cade pressure. And if they recognize that he's isolated, they might actually choose to just go. Arion, gotta be real careful here, nearly lost the floor from underneath himself. Hellfire, Strapped, Tripper, they've definitely been a little bit beat up here. gonna have to take a moment to try and pause and heal, and that's gonna be the real signs for Cade to continue just battering up against these builds, just trying to break through.
Now, normally you'd be thinking, they're in zone, you know, this is bad, they gotta finish this up. But the way this season has played out, I mean, there's so many heals, not only on the map, but just items available to you that it's okay to take these storm fights. It's okay to rotate late in the storm. You have the med mists, you have the chug jugs, you have everything you kind of need to be able to tank this storm and take a late rotate. So for Ivan, Cade, and his trio here, they don't really have too many problems. They don't have to rush anything here, as they're doing a good job of kind of getting damage done when needed. Another kind of note is I believe Tripper was originally going to land at Kappa Kappa, so seeing him here at Shogun Solitude is interesting. A lot of quick mix-ups in the last moments, but so far both trios have done a good amount of damage.
Gotta do what you gotta do to try and find your surge after all. But Cade, big blow. That's gonna be a massive exchange here. And now Ivan, Aryan, Force scrambling. They come together. They find Hellfire, but still, Srapt, Tripper, they look so much healthier. Tripper didn't initially have the materials he needed to draw this fight out. Now he's definitely got them. Thanks to that last refresh, might even be able to get the revive off, but Srapt, he's got to play defense. He's trying to create some space. He gets a big tag onto Ivan, nearly finds the full finish, but Ivan, he's going to scramble on out of there. Hellfire still knocked, still waiting for one of his teammates, maybe now both of them, to go for the full revive. Aryan has been fully eliminated, and Ivan is going to be the lone survivor, but both of these teams, Takada, even if Ivan manages to get out, it's still such a difficult situation because they are way out there on the southern west portion of the map compared to everybody else.
Yeah, there's so many kind of players that are going to be waiting for them. So hopefully a good rotate will be planned out for Misha, though. He has to be careful. You got Demus and Pix going right into your box. It's not a duo that I want to go against, but Demus misses his shot, ends up getting knocked down from the 2v1 to now a 1v1 for Pix. The Chug Jug is going to get popped. 2 Chug Splashes alongside that from advantage to disadvantage in a split second, as it looks like another trio has entered the mix.
Tidy's gonna cause some real issues there, potentially. Sangilde and Jewel maybe even scouted out the fact that Misha is all by his lonesome. He's just gonna sit quiet as ever, hoping, praying that nobody bothers to look down and see this single player all by his lonesome, boxed up at the bottom of this bridge. Tragic stuff, though, for Demus. That is a beyond rare sight to see him with a shot in that close of proximity, but goes to show it happens to the best of us.
It does. Respect to Misha for holding his ground. Unfortunate for missing his shot there, or well, Demus missing his shot, but you know, we've talked about it. Their first major finals, now into their second major finals. Maybe a little bit of nerves. We'll see how it plays on. It's only game number 1. Chicho, Haris, and Tayson, now originally contested by Chap, Teeny, and Scavi. I wonder how that's going to change up with Vico, Veno, and Flixi kind of in the mix now in this area, but we saw the fight earlier on the west side by Shogun Solitude. Now maybe in a bit here, those trios will have to rotate in, and Tayson, Chicho, Harisso set up perfectly to kind of take shots onto them as they rotate into zone. If we're thinking about kind of those clusters that happen around the map where a lot of surge bases end up getting built to rotate on through. On the other hand, though, battles in the storm are continuing to play out.
And this is kind of what we were expecting to see. It's definitely what the desk was alluding to. Mini and Levin both specifically highlighting the fact that those black markets, there are just so many heals, so many resources to gather, and even if you don't directly take them, you know that there's going to be other teams looking for those opportunities, so you could try to clear those teams instead and just yoink all the goods from them via eliminations. Combat, Mixon, and Blaha seemingly might have had that in mind. They're kind of just hovering the outskirts of Magic Mosses, but for the most part, haven't really been able to manifest something outside of that early elimination. Cheatin', Trexer, and Robin, though, just south of Mass Meadows, and this could be the danger zone. Only 92 above the current surge threshold. They've got 2 other trios separated in front of them, but no shot's going to connect. They're going to have to continue paving their way forward, but they're also just trying to be so wary, knowing that there's teams trailing them. They can't really afford to not throw up a little bit of materials, a little bit of builds behind them as they leave.
There was a 68% increase of time spent in Storm compared to the last season. And I mean, you can see that happening right in front of you, largely due, like you mentioned, Taco, to those extra kind of heals being available in the black market and, you know, opening those opportunities to get that Storm Surge in what you could say almost a safer location with less trios. But at the point where, you know, a majority of the trios are playing the Storm route, it kind of starts getting questionable at a point. But it looks like Trexer, Robin, and Sheetan are 138 below, so they don't have too many options. They have to kind of put themselves head first into these trios that are already kind of based up and waiting for them. So it is going to be difficult to find a way out here. Oh.
Twy. This is an unfortunate circumstance. Tayson, Atris, though, they've lost Chicho. They're forced to try and brawl their way out of this as a duo. Fortunately, team surrounding them not necessarily in a very healthy spot either. I see Twy, but I don't see his comrades anywhere near. Ricky, he just got sandwiched and absolutely smothered. But Atris, he's got to be careful. He's just trying to hold his own, and he gets dogpiled in the process. That's going to be 2 players knocked. Now it's Tayson looking to keep things going. You can tell, though, Belusi definitely hurt. Belusi definitely desperate to try and close in on these final eliminations. But Tayson, he's not going to let him have it for free by any means. He is defending Atris, and successfully so. Finding that elim onto Belusi could not have come at a better time. Now he can take this 1v1 exchange up against Twy, who is hoping to pounce at a more optimal moment. Instead, Tayson, he might even look to just play for the revive, ensure that he's got his duo to at least tag along with him for the duration of this match.
I mean, Tayson heard the crack onto Twy, meaning it was, you know, either a team shooting him from afar or more likely Storm Surge. So he knows he cannot let Twy do damage to him right now, as if he kind of just waits it out, it should be able to tick Twy down enough to even maybe fully eliminating him. So it's a lot safer and a better option here to play for that revive. But you got to take those shots when they're opened up to you, and as time goes on, he's going to be forced to play the Med Mist. Twy's just 1 shot away from getting eliminated here, but it looks like if he isn't able to pick up Atris here in the next second, he is going to go down. At the same time, picks up the elimination onto Twy, but now it's going to have to look for a reboot to bring his team back into the match.
Tayson is cooked off of that one. All he wanted was to get Atris back with the revive, but Twy just pestering him non-stop. Even with Tayson securing the elimination, doesn't necessarily put him in a better spot to finish out game 1. Seti, Cammy, and Hari, on the other hand, this is a trio that a lot of eyes have definitely been on leading into this weekend, just because we all know what took place in the Major 1 Finals. We all try not to talk about it as well. But Seti, Cammy, Hari, if there's a team that loves surge basing, it might be them. SWE's POTUS Ion art skill. A little bit too tangled up, though, with Sangilde and Jewel, and they are paying the ultimate price with their lives here at Flooded Frogs. Completely cleared out. Jewel, Sangilde, and Tidy needed this one, and managing to find it. Still, 2-tick zone. They've got to get a move on out of this storm.
It's a tough position to be in when you're at the point where you have to be the aggressors due to being low on surge. It's a really difficult fight to kind of come out with the upper hand on. And when you're just playing defensive like Tidy, Julian, Sangilde, you can normally get that quick cleanup. You more have to make the changes before you get to the point where you have to take that fight while you're below. But it's difficult. This is a major finals lobby. The amount of damage needed to be above that surge threshold is incredibly high. For Julie, Sangilde, and Tidy now, though, they've kind of done their damage. They've got their eliminations, and they're fully north. So here, being in that kind of advantageous position of already having the damage, they can take a longer rotate, stay in zone a bit longer if it means rotating into the dead side of the map with less trios kind of based up looking at them. For Thomas, Panzer, and Uppel, though, they are already in the zone, ready to take shots with the trios rotating in.
And Thomas rocking that mythic drum gun. We've seen exactly how potent he can be whenever this is in his hands, and already making good use of it, lighting up teams. that are looking to rotate along this hill face. Vico, Veno, and Flixie. It's been a minute since we've gotten to check out what they've been up to. And Chicho, poor man with Atris. Tayson goes for the reboot and doesn't get any of the benefits. Vico, though, that is a massive knock from seemingly out of nowhere. Flixie and Veno close enough, though, that they can play for the double revive, but this is going to slow them down. They do have an ample amount of builds and materials, but they were clearly after a priority position towards the next zone, even if it meant playing for a dead side wraparound. Now they're going to have to reconsider their next move because teams know that they've been weakened, and Kidowo Volko, they're not willing to let Flixie, Vico, and Veno just pass on by. We're all getting a little bit tangled up here underneath the bridge, but Volko, Kidowo, this is a 2 versus 3 scenario, and it's something that they don't want to have to commit to if they don't have to, because both of these teams fully understanding, hey, we don't really need to fight this. We need to get our positioning on lock.
Yeah, this is 7th zone. This is where that storm damage kind of becomes more of an issue at 5 ticks per second in the storm. So they can't be taking these fights, especially when they're low on heals. They need to focus on getting into the zone and not kind of playing more like you would in the mid game, taking those storm fights, even if it costs you a lot of materials. So good job rotating on in here. I mean, let alone 7 eliminations on the board already for this trio. All they really need to do is make it to the end game.
The start was definitely some foreshadowing in terms of how active Veno, Vico, and Flixie actually intended on being throughout game 1. Marius, Vanya, and Pixie, though, a little bit hurt here, Takada. They're boxed up for the time being, but that was the last of Marius's Chug Jug. Right now, what they're hoping for is that they can find an immediate refresh. They'd like more material. They're going to need the hard mats as well if they have any intentions of trying to play for height. And the way that the zone is starting to pull upwards towards elevation, Camiseti and Hari not too far behind them. Queasy's team clearly already trying to elevate themselves just a cut above the rest of the lobby.
Yeah, I mean, although they don't have the elevated position yet, they are on that 50-50 pull for 8th zone. Will they look for it early on? Will they not? What I'm thinking here is there's a large mountain that could potentially have the zone pulled towards. And if that does end up happening, it's going to make the rotate that much more difficult, and kind of meaning you're wasting mats if you're building up here. So instead, they are going to decide to just get more deep into zone, kind of on the uncongested side of 8th here. So no high ground plays yet, but it's just a matter of time.
Queasy knows full well that Hari, Cami, and Seti just have the advantage, but the way that Mixing, Comeback, and Blaha are looking to play Disruptor towards height, they want to take over that secondary height position, but there is a lot of lobby focus headed their way. Marius, Vanya, Pixie, they were trying to tussle with some of these teams in the low ground. They find themselves now on the receiving end. It's only Marius that's alive, and he's just trying to dash on out of there. The kneecapper gonna put him ahead, but he is just building for his life, hoping that no one recognizes that he is a solo. And with Reason's team just on the other level of his current layer, Marius, it doesn't have any other options but to play backside of zone. He's going to be forced into a fight one way or the other, though, whether it's a team looking for cleanups or maybe even the team on height. And that's Camiseti and Hari already making sure to just spray everybody underneath them and try and ruin that front side low ground position that Queasy's team's setting up for.
This is not a trio that you'd expect to see first moving zone on height in game 1 of the EU FNCS Major Finals, but they ended up having that prime elevated position on the hill. They held that for 7th. Zone pulled towards them on 8th and 9th here now, and it looks like they're going to try and control this for the rest of the match. I mean, Camiseti, Hari, it didn't go well for them Major 1. But now they've been looking like favorites going into this major. They're uncontested and they're capitalizing on it in the end game. If they can close this one out, it would be massive, but Vico has to be careful. Left on just 35 HP to work with. Flixie's healthy, but they're split up. it's going to be difficult for them to get in.
And teams were shooting at him, they just weren't hitting. That is until Wax finally becomes a part of the conversation. Now it's all up to Flixie, just continuing to try and darp his way through the low ground. Things are getting so chaotic though, so many players just falling every which way inside of these disruptive low ground layers. But Flixie, he might have found a moment of relief. He might have even found an opportunity to strike, but he has no builds left. He's forced, he's scrambling out from underneath, but now it's Height that's continuing to suppress, continuing to spray into where he's currently located. He's trying to dive, dip, duck, dodge every which way, but there's only so many directions he can head before one of these other teams surrounding him takes notice. This is a solo, left all alone, waiting to be claimed by the lobby. Instead, it's Kombat that's gonna be brought down. Flixie, he just extended it one more, but the damage was too much to handle. Flixie, he's gonna finally be brought down, but still impressive stuff after the fact. Malabuka taking out Blaha. Things are getting messy here.
Couldn't get the siphon in time. Malabuka doing a great job of staying ahead. Full trio still looking healthy. I see Pink's trio as well looking healthy. So many full trios, but Cammy, Seti, Harry, they get chopped down. Good news is, no fall damage taken. It's the fight for Height. And on the other end, it's going to be Swizzy. It's going to be Queasy, Merstash. And it looks like they might have just taken control as Harry's forced to drop down. Mini's being popped, and Merstash, Queasy, Swizzy, once again, like we're used to seeing up on the elevated position.
Merstash, Queasy, Swizzy, though they know job's not finished. Pink currently in control of that front side low, but so many bodies surrounding him. Kira's now potentially going to get tangled up in the mix. Nebs and Kudo, though, they're making sure to stick right behind their IGL. Walks Malabuka, walks all by himself. Walks taken out. No builds means no opportunities to bring this one back. Not while Queasy's team is on the high ground. Swizzy just continuing to spray, continuing to be a nuisance. Merstash already going to make the drop. Wants to commit to further eliminations here, and Girdas is trying to see if he can just break through. He knows these walls don't belong to him, but he's running out of materials, Takada.
Full low. This is where the players that have no mats, have low heals, are going to slowly fall down to, but there's only 3 trios up. Still 8 players on the board. So many full teams playing this out as Pink and Nebs now are going to battle the low. Gyros is going to get the knock. Swizzy, Queasy, Merstash, all they have to do is clean this one up. Merstash with a massive pump, looking to take down player after player. The angles are looking insane from Swizzy as he gets one more, and Merstash and Queasy clean it up for the first victory royale of the EU FNCS Major Finals.
Queasy knows exactly what his role is in this trio. Just maintain that eagle-eye view of the lobby and let Merstash and Swizzy play janitor crew on the low ground. They were absolutely picking up just constant tags, constant eliminations, and it's going to be a massive benefit to open up Major 2 Finals with a victory royale here at Takada.
I love how Queasy, Swizzy, and Merstash do such a good job of knowing when they can take height, but also when it's not the best idea to go for it. I mean, we saw how controlled it was from Cammy, Seti, and Hari going into that late game. They pulled the mountain zone. They pulled the first moving. Everything was in their favor, but Queasy's like, you know, we don't gotta rush it. We can take things slow. We can wait for our moment to strike, and that is exactly what they did to take it in that final moving zone and led to them getting that victory royale. What a way to start off game 1. But I need Frankie, Levin, and Mini to break it down because there's definitely something that we missed.
I don't think you missed a single moment, but there are so many magic moments we need to talk about now. A Queasy, Swizzy, Merstash. This is what we expected. This is what we wanted from this Trio 11. I wasn't expecting them to do it in game 1, but here you go. They're setting out their stall for the weekend, and they are setting their sights on Leon.
What a first game. What a first game. I mean, It doesn't get better than that. It's funny, right? Because we spent a lot of time on the broadcast this year talking about like Queasy taking height from the 8th zone, and it's like nobody can take it off of him. He said, hold on a minute, lads. They don't have to be 8th zone. It can be whenever I want. And here it was the 11th zone. They chop Cammy, Seti, and Hari. They take it off of them. Merstash, Queasy, Swizzy, so ruthless in these scenarios where they are taking height from someone, not just when they are playing it early, Mini, and they win out the game. A sign of what's to come.
Yeah, really, really great stuff from this team. I think what I really liked about that was that they didn't have like an absolute abundance of materials when going for height, and I think that just shows the confidence, the ability of this team to take height when they don't necessarily have that many materials. They are able to chop down height. They took out, of course, Cammy, Seti, and Hari, and the way that they were able to get those refreshes allowed them to take height and win the game. Really, really nicely done from them, and just a perfect way for them to start the game. We spoke about how they start their games in the tournaments sort of at the beginning of the show, and we didn't really touch too much on how they play height, but right there was just an absolute masterclass on how to take it late.
How many games now in FNCS finals has Queasy won? Like, I think he already had the most of anybody, right? But he just keeps adding and adding and adding. It's just, oh, it's ridiculous.
Well, if I recall right, the record is 6 VRs from Queasy.
Well, that's in one. That's in one.
Yeah,
but I'm saying in total, like VRs in just
total.
all major finals. Like, I'm pretty sure he already has like the most wins of like anyone in the EU.
But I want to see. I'm talking over you now, Levin, but I want to see if he can do 7, because he did 6 back in Chapter 4 with Veno, so maybe he could be doing 7 or more with his trio this weekend. But we're only one game in, guys. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back to discuss where our other trios are sitting on the leaderboard. Welcome back to FNCS Europe. We're one game into the Major 2 Grand Finals, and Queasy, Swizzy and Merstash took that victory royale in style, and they took it from long-term Queasy rivals Cammy, I should say, Seti and Hari. We'll talk about them in a moment, but first of all, we want to talk about the team that came second in Major 1, because Malibuca, Pig and Wox, I did maybe slightly put the cat amongst the pigeons mini minor in the pre-show, where I was saying I was a little bit worried about what their consistency was going to be like going into the finals, but they've already proven me wrong, let's face it.
Yeah, solid game from these guys. I'm sure they would have liked to end a little bit better. better, but what they're happy with there is just making it to this end game, ensuring that they can really frag out. There's a few moments there as well, Levin, where we saw some sort of pre-edits coming through. I said in the back, it's absolutely vintage Malabuka, and it's nice to see them playing with this sort of freedom that they know they can play at. And for them, it's just about keeping on making these end games. This is what I was talking about, just these pre-edits coming through. No team can do anything against that when you have the prowess of Malabuka, Wox, and Ping. And I think it's just one of those teams that we expect to frag out in end games. It's just making it there, making it into those positions consistently. That's what's going to be most important for them.
No, you gassed me up when you were saying that, because it's facts. That is just vintage Malabuka. We've seen him do this literally for years now in FNCS, right? Being a menace on mid-ground, it's always what he's going to do, but now he's got two top shooters with him in Ping and Wox. I think I want to see more of that from them, right? Like you said, just keep making it to those end games, keep being a menace, keep being, you know, ruthless on those walls. Yeah, their end games aren't always the cleanest, right? They might not, you know, get a bunch of wins playing that way, but they're going to get a bunch of elims. They're going to make it deep into games, and that's what counts sometimes when you're trying to compete for the title.
I also really love watching Fortnite because in the end game, sometimes you see trios pop up and you see these names and you go, oh yeah, it's nice to see them again, because it's lovely to see Giras making it to the end game with his teammates Franek and Dinas. They were picking up eliminations left, right and center, Levin.
Yeah, it's funny you said, I always enjoy watching Fortnite. I hope so. You know,
No, I just do it for the money.
I don't like it.
No, it's funny. I like that.
That was a joke.
No, me too. Sometimes I'm like,
Of course.
That's all right sometimes. Look,
decent.
this trio, we highlighted them a bit at the start about, you know, talking about sort of the Osborne situation for them. They've been a very solid team at Canyon Crossing, right? And they are one of those teams, I think we get them every single major mini, that are just a sleeper team with a really good game plan and a really good strategy. I think any zones that pull towards sort of the southwest, right? This zone was a bit of a foxy zone, so more central, right? But any zones that are pulling central in the southwest area, I think you can expect to see this team in the end game. They have those zones figured out.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes from Giras. I spoke about it when I was casting, that he actually coached his teammates previously. Now, of course, didn't, of course, qualify into Major 1 finals. Now he's actually playing with them this major, and you can sort of see that structure to their game. I was sort of looking back, and they were actually doing quite similar to what Queasy did when we broke down at the beginning of the show, sort of staying back in Storm. Really nicely done.
Well, you know what we spoke about at the beginning of the show? We spoke about Vico, Veno and Flixie dropping at Mars Meadows, but Levin, I can see the look on your face now because they didn't actually do what we were expecting them to do.
Look, I told you, if they can pull off what they want to pull off, they might shock the world, right? And this is just the beginning of that. Who knows where it goes? I might know, but I'm not going to say. We're just going to have to wait and see where it goes from here. They started off with Outlaw Oasis. Landing here was a shock to everybody. Nobody was expecting it. And they just cleaned house, really.
Yeah, I mean, if this is going to be what they're going to do now, I mean, they're going to go into it with a lot of confidence, right? Teams like Janus, experienced FNCS veterans going down Osborne, that confidence is going to be so vital for them. Unfortunately, didn't really work out in the rest of the game. We saw a little bit of problems for them going into the end game, but I'm excited to see what they can do now because it seems like Mars Meadows isn't necessarily going to be their drop spot choice.
Yeah, but like, if we theorize here, right? If they just land in a bunch of different places where teams are fighting off spawn and clean up those fights, like they're the best team in the world to do that, right? This could really work for them and be a cook of a strategy.
No one is going to be expecting the Veno Inquisition. I can't wait to see where they're dropping next, boys. Observers, make sure that we've got the cameras fixed on those guys every single game, please. We have got to head into game number 2, though. So let's head back to Taco and Takata and find out where those boys are dropping.
See, Levin's scared me a little bit, Frankie. He's given me a bit of concerns because he's like, okay, you know, Veno, Vico, Flixie, they landed at this new drop spot, unexpected Outlaw. They got the eliminations, but now it's going to be expected going into this next match. Are they just going to keep going through different POIs each game? Like, how do you plan out that? I got so many questions, Taco.
And the other issue, too, is for the rest of the lobby, you can't even get too caught up in thinking about what Venom, Vico, and Flixie are doing because you've got to focus on your own game plan. If match 1 didn't pan out in your favor, that's not to say that game 2 couldn't be yours for the taking. So a lot of these teams just going to keep their eyes on the prize, and that's getting off to a steady start here in day 1.
Yeah, normally you think the surprises are kind of out of the way going into game 2, but we'll see if that's the matter because the match will start right now.
You know, we had a special request from the desk to get a nice little perspective of what's taking place with Venom, Vico, and Flixie. But like we just talked about, Takata, there are other teams looking to throw their names into the hat for that Blade of Champions, and building up a nice lead for day one, heading into day two, is always a huge benefit to the master plan.
Kind of looking at the mini map. Okay, I see a few names at Outlaws, but is it as much as there was in the last match? We will be looking though at kind of the 50-50 drop that isn't gonna be a 50-50 per se, as maybe I might have ate my words, Taco, because shots are already being traded.
Shots were traded, but Zandy is actually paying the price elsewhere. Mr. Savage, the deal, Reason, they're going to be the first ones to touch down. Might be a short-lived victory, though. Just on the other end of the Big Ben tunnel of a Hollow. Too much pressure. Those are the tags that you have to land this early on. And now the advantage has been completely split into the Deals team's favor. Nam's going to be forced to bail out the opposite direction. But they are just so separated from each other. It's going to be so much easier now for Reason's team to just fully take over.
Yeah, looking like a 2-0 so far, as we go back over to Vico, Veno, and Flixie. And it looks like they're going all over the place, Taco.
Yeah, they've opted to go completely different. Lovely lane type of scene, so they might still be looking to try and push a little bit south. Those teams that they know are going to be contesting each other early on. The fact of the matter is, though, if I'm Teeny especially, I am looking at Veno and Raz and just thinking to myself, these guys really stole my whole flow, bar for bar. Want to be me so bad right now. But Veno, Vico, and Flixie, they're definitely the sort to carve their own identity with this kind of strategy, Takata. And it seems like Whiffy Wharf is on the mind, but does the other team that's already inbound at Whiffy even know of what's about to take place? Veno touching down first, getting ahead of the rest of his team. Peter Bohr trying to do what he can, create some space. Zangy and Zara, they're gonna have to be quick on their feet though if they want to catch up. And Peter just exclusively on the run right now. He does not want anything to do with Veno. He wants the reinforcements before taking up this fight. And Veno, this is what makes him so clever. A cut above the rest, just constantly keeping tabs. He spots two players. I know there's one still lurking. I'm not going to overexpose myself.
Veno's looking fast. I like the way it's looking right now. They clearly prepared to take these fights. Zara's already gonna get cracked. This isn't even their original drop spot, but they're just going from drop to drop, taking fights on trios all over the map. And as good as fighters as they are, if they're able to consistently close these out, this is going to be the first time well, it is literally the first time we've ever witnessed a playstyle like this. I'm trying to think overall, not only in the major finals, especially on purpose.
Tina and Misha, who really kick-started the whole ordeal
a
while back, but even still, in trios, Flixie might be on the receiving end of trouble, though. Vico, Veno, they're just too quick with it. Zara claimed. That's one elimination in tow. 2 left to go. You know this is their search strategy, and Vico just immediately jumps in, but Vico, for a moment, thought we'd have to worry, but it's Vico that we're talking about after all. That's his next elimination in sight. Clean trio wipe here at Whiffy Wharf, and it's that time to elimination. Veno, Vico, and Flixie get it done so fast.
Now it's about what's next, though. Have they really prepared the rotates from all of these different drop spots? How are they going to play out those mid games, switching it up every time? We'll see how it goes. As right now, Giras, Frenek, Dynas trying to see if they can at least get a bit of tags here on Hellfire, Scrapped, and Trip. Not too much aggression, but kind of just shots back and forth.
It's quite literally an uphill battle, though, for Tripper, and it's what it's felt like this entire season so far. Tripper is not willing to be a bystander, though. Probably just happy to be a participant for the Major 2 finals, so they're definitely going to want to try and win out at that last exchange. Focus, Janice, and for Strokey, they have certainly won Outlaw Oasis when you see 3 elims on Focus, but F9, Moneymaker faded. they might be making an introduction that is not accounted for.
Reason said, I'm not letting you go untouched here as Noms gets taken out. They already got that initial pick to start off game 2 here, now picking up Noms. Just one player left in the trio, but you kind of want to insert, you know, the dominance, especially after getting the pick early on. You don't want to let them freely roam, kind of like they did in game 1, and find themselves at another trio. You know, to be the ones to kind of put an end to it, as it looks like Savage is gonna kind of continue making his way, as they might even be able to use this chase as a rotate in a sense as well, if they want to go kind of that east side on congested route. A lot less trios contested around there though, so there is going to be less action and most likely not as much Storm playing. But you got to think, you know, is Queasy, Swizzy, Merstash going to be waiting for them if they take that route? A lot of things to consider here.
There's just no reason not to follow Twy though, because even if he manages to get a little bit of distance from Reason's trio, they're right by Mass Meadows. The black market is right there, so Savage's team will have no issues replenishing any heals that they might lose along the way. They're definitely willing to commit, spending a little bit of time inside of the Storm. Sky Scroll and Eyedrop. This is a team, though, that's been relatively quiet throughout match number 1. And it's also a team where Eyedrop specifically is looking to beat the finals allegation stigma. He wants to prove that he's got what it takes for that top tier placement.
Hey, Mini believes in it. I believe in it too. For Vanya, Marius, and Pixie. This is a trio that has been kind of dominating Flooded Frogs throughout the season. In the divisional cups, playing incredibly consistent as well. And it should be no different here in the major finals. They've got their plan routed out, and they know what they need to do to get themselves to the late game. But right now, the step is kind of just taking shots, doing damage. I don't think they're going to take any risks here.
Looking at the amount of heals and goodies that were at the top of that stairwell. Faded F9, Moneymaker, though, they finally got what they were after. It was a fight with Strokey's team, but Giannis seemingly has the advantage. The Strokey down in the low ground. Giannis getting a nice pop shot onto Faded from above. That's going to be green light to go. Knows that he's cracked, but they're still willing to just wait it out. There's not many places left to run when you are inside of Sakura Stadium, so they're willing to just stick to the high ground. Don't take any unnecessary risk. Focus for Strokey, Giannis. They want to close this one out, though. You can definitely tell that they are aching to be more involved, but they're also aware of the fact that F9 and Moneymaker, they're just running low on materials. It seemed like it could be part of the reason why they're so hesitant to actually push forward. Vico, Veno, and Flixie, they're also looking to gather their resources just from raw fighting strategy.
Look, they are comfortable with this side of the map. They did land Flooded Frogs last season, and they know very well how to play this north side out. So in terms of kind of the rotate here and doing damage, they're just looking for openings, looking for options, and kind of going back and forth there. Luckily enough, the zone did pull north, so they have the choice to just continue on the full uncongested side and not take a lot of those risks that the trios down south are going to have to on their long rotate. They can even conserve a lot of the materials and heals, so it's looking good, in my opinion, for Vico, Veno, and Flixie here. As long as they don't do anything too risky.
One problem that's building, though, is Veno. He's got Darkise's trio directly underneath where they are currently boxed. And sure, you want to take the odd shot or two at Eyedrop's team, but you can't find yourself being sandwiched in the process. So Veno using that natural elevation to cover, prevent any line of sight from Eyedrop, and just try to deal with the immediate threat, and that's Felix and Darkise. But Felix beamed the moment that he tries to get that overhead view. Meanwhile, Vico, Veno, Flixie, they're going to opt for a full wraparound disengage, just taking advantage of the campfire now. Settled on the beach. Sure, they might be a little bit out northwest from where the rest of the lobby is currently fixated, but that's not a concern when they have so many heals to work with. And F9 definitely wishes he had something to replenish his HP. Instead, a victim of Yanis's trio and their aggressive nature.
Yeah, this is the fight we were kind of seeing. Ended up playing it out. And now they, have the option to make their way back into zone, but we'll look here at Ferdoxy, Pablo, and Chino. Looks like they found Robin here in a tough situation. Do they even know? Yeah. Okay, not bad. Few eliminations, still at hopeful, but like we've mentioned before, so many trios just playing in zone for an incredibly long period of time. What I'm thinking now is they'll rotate into zone. They have to pass through Seaport. They have to pass through Cammy and Seti potentially. So there's a lot of trios that are potentially already kind of based up, waiting for them to make their way into zone. So we'll see how they end up navigating that.
No surprises, though, to see so many other teams still willing to commit to some of these storm fights. And Chaps, V, Teeny. And this was one of the Frankie's forecast teams. We kind of hard to not put them on the radar, though. They've got just so much fighting caliber inside of this trio, and a couple of teams surrounding them could be a big sign for them to just slip by uninvolved. They're going to make sure, though, that Ivan pays the price here. Completely disoriented, was looking at separate direction entirely, and now Teeny, Chaps, V just full keying onto Arian's trio. They are not going to allow these guys to pass on by. They want the additional eliminations. They know just how incredibly low Ivan even is, but Svi, he's been taken out. That is a huge blow. Chap and Teeny, they wanted to go unscathed from this exchange. Instead, they're gonna have to opt to play fallback now. They need their full trio intact if they want that end game. And this is such a massive delay for them to have to play for the reboot.
Yeah, this is tough. It's fourth zone. I mean, fifth one is the last one at 1 DPS per second. And they really can't take too much time here. Not only that, now they have the issue of getting chased alongside that. Cade, Ivan, they know there's more than enough heals to play this one in zone as Chap gets knocked down. Teeny left alone. It is just crumbling down for this trio.
The only real silver lining, hold that thought though, Cringe could look to pose a serious problem here. He's not willing to let Teeny slip on by, but he might not have a choice. Kiduo also nearby. Other teams that have been a little bit caught up in harm's way here is Volko now fully aware of the fact that Cade, Ivan, and Arian are nestled right behind him. They're just gonna opt to crouch around. Steady goes on the low ground. Just playing inside of the vault building at Crime City. Vico, Veno, Flixie, this is not what they were hoping for, though. They wanted to be aggressive, but they wanted to be the ones doing all the hunting, not getting hunted themselves. Whiffy Wharf just turning out to be disastrous currently for Veno. He's hoping that he can get some additional tags here. He needs some big connects, but he's not gonna find it. Cleaned up and punished for their attempts. Maybe a little overzealous, maybe just the fact they got stuck between iDrop's team and Darkis's. But regardless, the outcome's all the same here, Takada. They've been wiped from the lobby incredibly early on.
Yeah, I'm not sure what caused that, initial knock to happen, but what we have to keep in mind is they're down 26th place with 3 eliminations. Like, this is something, it is, 12 total matches throughout the 2 days, but they had a pretty good start with the amount of eliminations, the position they got, but if they get these matches where they don't make it to endgame, it's going to be tough to get a solid placement. Strokey getting knocked down off the reboot. Focus falling after, looking like a Pro-Am lobby potentially with all the players flying throughout the sky.
But this strategy is what really boded so well for iDrop's team in the last major, at least throughout the divisional weeks. And Skrull, he'll keep things rolling. Already has been eliminated. 5 eliminations in total, though, so you have to anticipate that iDrop's team is definitely massively benefiting as far as their surge damage goes. But I think more importantly still, it's the third-party nature. They were notorious for it all throughout Major 1 and the last season. So to see them being able to replicate some of those methods of success here, that's going to be a huge momentum swing in their favor. But Now they need to translate this early success into a nice late game finish.
Yeah, I mean, they got 4th place last match, ended 6th overall on the leaderboard. They only had 3 eliminations. Now they already have more than what they had after they finished the last match, so they're set up for success. What they don't need to do now is keep taking these fights in zone. I think it's kind of time to start rotating. Time to start being careful, but Scroll 200 to 0 in half a second. And this is an opening for Giraz, Frantic, and Dynus to continue pushing on through.
Real thorn in the side right now for iDrop's team. That is the last thing that they would have expected, is to just be trailed. It's unfortunate for Scroll, but sometimes you gotta be willing to throw up those builds behind you, just not quick enough with it. Definitely a very unfortunate outcome. QO on the opposite end of that one, though. Big knock, big cleanups, massive eliminations that are just going to permit them to stick around in Storm one moment longer.
Look, Malabuka and Walks have been looking insanely consistent. We talked about them kind of not having the best performance in the play-ins, you know, to match their expectations, and in week 5, the Divisional Cup finals, but even throughout the day, they made it to the late game in the first match. They got a good amount of eliminations. They're looking incredibly set up to do that once again in this second game, and major finals all about consistency, so I'm liking what we're seeing so far.
I like to take that Div Week 5 finals with a grain of salt, because also have to remember that was when Veno's team decided we're going to be landing Lone Wolf Lair as well, and then it definitely posed a couple of issues for Malabuka's team in terms of how they wanted to handle that. So the outcome here in the Major 2 Finals weekend is all that they are intent on focusing for. They're even all boot camping in Germany. They're building up that, I think, synergy as a team. And it could net a really positive end result. But like you already know, Takada, you never want to get too far ahead of yourself. You never want to start to daydream about being in that winning position, because you've got to focus on the here and now.
Gotta lock in, just like Thomas HD with his drum gun, literally doubling the damage from every other player in the group stage that also have the drum gun in their, you know, rightful group. Thomas HD had 6,000 damage just with the drum gun in his group to qualify.
Es ist offiziell, Chat. Ich habe meine neue Map endlich rausgehauen. Und zwar die Tilted Red vs. Blue. Die Tilted Red vs. Blue ist eine Red vs. Blue Map mit ganz Tilted Tower drin. Auf unserer Map habt ihr wirklich alles, was ihr braucht. Ihr habt Heal-Items, SMGs, Shotguns, wirklich die seltensten Waffen in ganz Fortnite. Hier ist nicht mal ein Battle Royale. Ebenso haben wir auch einen Power Shop, wo ich Sachen wie Instant Reload, Unsichtbarkeit, Super Jump, Super Speed und vieles mehr kaufen könnt. Ebenso haben wir überall XP auf der Map verteilt, damit ihr euren Battle Pass so schnell es geht aufleveln könnt. Ebenso haben wir viele Secret Special Räume auf der Map eingebaut, die ihr natürlich aber davor finden müsst. Aber sobald ihr das geschafft habt, werdet ihr natürlich belohnt mit Sachen wie XP, Superkräfte, Cheats oder auch natürlich so seltene Waffen wie diesen Grappler oder die schwarze Scar. Und im Vergleich zu anderen Red vs. Blue Maps habt ihr auf dieser Map Zero Delay, maximale FPS und Zero Ping, was natürlich geisteskrank ist. Alles, was ihr machen müsst, um die Map zu spielen, ist einfach nur TRV SB in der Suchleiste eingeben, Map favorisieren und viel Spaß. Es ist offiziell, Chat. Ich habe meine neue Map endlich rausgehauen. Und zwar die Tilted Red vs. Blue. Die Tilted Red vs. Blue ist eine Red vs. Blue Map mit ganz Tilted Tower drin. Auf unserer Map habt ihr wirklich alles, was ihr braucht. Ihr habt Heal-Items, SMGs, Shotguns, wirklich die seltensten Waffen in ganz Fortnite. Hier ist nicht mal ein Battle Royale. Ebenso haben wir auch einen Power Shop, wo ihr Sachen wie Instant Reload, Unsichtbarkeit, Super Jump, Super Speed und vieles mehr kaufen könnt. Ebenso haben wir überall XP auf der Map verteilt, damit ihr euren Battle Pass so schnell es geht aufleveln könnt. Ebenso haben wir viele Secret Special Räume auf der Map eingebaut, die ihr natürlich aber davor finden müsst. Aber sobald ihr das geschafft habt, werdet ihr natürlich belohnt mit Sachen wie XP, Superkräfte, Cheats oder auch natürlich so seltene Waffen wie diesen Grappler oder die schwarze Scar. Und im Vergleich zu anderen Red vs. Blue Maps habt ihr auf dieser Map Zero Delay, maximale FPS und Zero Ping, was natürlich geisteskrank ist. Alles, was ihr machen müsst, um die Map zu spielen, ist einfach nur TRV SB in der Suchleiste eingeben, Map favorisieren und viel Spaß. Es ist offiziell, Chat. Ich habe meine neue Map endlich rausgehauen. Und zwar die Tilted Red vs. Blue. Die Tilted Red vs. Blue ist eine Red vs. Blue Map mit ganz Tilted Tower drin. Auf unserer Map habt ihr wirklich alles, was ihr braucht. Ihr habt Heal-Items, SMGs, Shotguns, wirklich die seltensten Waffen in ganz Fortnite, die es nicht mal im Battle Royale gibt. Ebenso haben wir auch einen Powershop, wo ihr Sachen wie Instant Reload, Unsichtbarkeit, Super Jump, Super Speed und vieles mehr kaufen könnt. Ebenso haben wir überall XP auf der Map verteilt, damit ihr euren Battle Pass so schnell es geht aufleveln könnt. Ebenso haben wir viele Secret Special Räume auf der Map eingebaut, die ihr natürlich aber davor finden müsst. Aber sobald ihr das geschafft habt, werdet ihr natürlich belohnt mit Sachen wie XP, Superkräfte, Cheats oder auch natürlich so seltene Waffen wie diesen
Need to look for a refresh early on here. Their mind isn't on high ground. Their mind is getting themselves back into the game.
It's looking like a dominoes effect, potentially. The damage that Veno's team caused landing so northwards of the map caused teams to kind of hesitate, kind of stick around, but Merstash makes it happen, puts his team above Big Elim when they needed it most. And that's going to be the first one for this trio even. So surge damage has definitely been an issue for some of these other teams, a little bit more center map to find. And Merstash, Swizzy, Queasy, they're content to stay based up, but they need more refreshes, and they need to make it to the bodies because they need the loot also.
Looking at this. There's a lot of trios that are already positioned in a good spot in zone, but so many of them are just missing that damage. Blaha's trio's fully cracked. Malibuka's only 86 above. The good news is now's the time. You can't miss the shots as these people that are on the congested side start working their way towards the zone. It looks like Merstash is left as a solo as well. He's lost his teammates, forced to rotate in below Surge. A miracle is what he needs to make it out of this one. Just 2 ticks left. It's not looking good.
He's just so fixated on trying to get tags onto the players behind him. Even if he'd secured them, it wouldn't have made much of a difference because those teams already based inside the zone. Looking at Vanya, Pixie, and Marius, with Queasy's trio having fallen. Gotta, this could be their best opportunity to overtake Hyden. Thomas HD, he goes down in the low ground. Marius, Pixie, Vanya doing exactly what they need to, just completely spraying all these teams, trying to pile into Flooded Frogs at the last minute. Pix even hoping that he could pick up some leftover goods. Instead, eats a few tags from Marius, and they just continue to tarp overhead. Vanya has been cracked, though. He's got to be careful.
Look, they said, it doesn't matter if we don't pull the 50-50 here. It doesn't matter if the zone goes to the opposite side. We're still holding on to this. And if any trio is going to get a win, if any trio is going to close this match out, Vanya, Marius, and Pixie have great odds to do so. As Sky Scroll and iDrop, incredible performance. So many eliminations already on the board. They were consistent in the first game. There's so many big names they can still hit.
They want to control that front side low, but they're going to have to deal with Tripper's team potentially. Podesai, X-Squeeze, and Artskill also a little bit caught up here in the mid ground. You can tell they're trying to keep tabs on height, but they just got to get it moving. They've got to make sure that they are in the front side. They don't want to get caught up in the mix of the congestion that's starting to really build inside of these mid to lower layers. And just all the while, Mr. Savage, Reason, and Vadil have been quietly chipping away at these builds right in front of them. Pixstorm, Demus, they've got to be real careful here. They might not even be aware of the fact, but no, it's going to be Vadil instead who's collected. Pablo, potentially the one benefiting in that process. But for Oxy's team, they look so incredibly unhealthy in comparison. iDrop, Sky, Scroll, they've managed to cut through, but it comes at a cost. Scroll, yet again, off in the process. And iDrop
to pick him up, though. I think they can get the double. They're going to be back in the game here, but they already have double-digit elims, Taco. Are you kidding me? Marius, Pixie, Vanya still holding on to height. They literally had a 12% win rate in the Div Cup finals. They know how to secure these victory royales, and now they want to do it in the major finals. Marius showing his fragging power as he drops down. Looks to pick up a quick refresh, but unable to do so. Is going to play for safety once again.
Yeah, on second thought, Marius is like, I don't actually need to get involved just yet. I'm gonna fall back to where my teammates are at. Healthy, on height, Savage completely collapsed on, though, just a victim of trying to play towards that backside. But the zone, it's pulling back. This is massive now for the team on height. Marius, Pixie, Vanya, they are just letting everyone in the low grounds completely eat themselves alive. Malabuka, Ping, and Walks hoping to try and be the catalyst here in the low ground, generate some form of low ground success. And if these other teams aren't careful, they might actually succeed. Pix, Darman, Demas, though, they're preparing to try and shock the world, and it starts by taking out X-Squeeze.
When they hit big. Well, you gotta be careful. You can't get stuck in the dirt. Pix is the only one that makes it out of his trio. Walks, Malabuka, Ping, they continue. The chemistry is looking stronger than ever as Vanya is looking to see, does he play this heal off? Is he gonna let his teammate frag? How can he close this one off? As Pixie picking up elimination after elimination, 4 on the board already as they prep themselves now for the final moments. The decision, how do we close this one out?
But Marius, he tries to tango in the low ground, instead gets punished for it. You've still got Pix way in the backside, trying to just play out a little bit of placement here. All the while, Ping, Walks, Malabuka, they might even get the benefit here of a freebie siphon off of Pix if they recognize just how low he is, but it's also iDrop. iDrop's getting involved in the conversation here. Ping, Walks, Malabuka, one of the only healthy trios left to remain, left to try and threaten, because aside from iDrop as a solo, it's only Vanya and Pixie up above in the skies. High versus low. How long can you hold out for, though? Ping, Walks, Malabuka, the builds are running so incredibly low. They're trying to make sure that they keep steady height overhead, but Malabuka, he might be the one to be the difference maker. Vanya's gonna fall back. Vanya's trying to play for the heal off. Vanya needs to make sure he doesn't get tagged in the process, and he's got the Menmis grenade here, Takada. It might be the separating factor.
Has Pixie done enough damage? He got a knock. He cracked one of the players, but is it going to be enough to let Malabuka out-heal Vanya? Now, it's all up to who has more heals. Both players with the Chug Jug, Vanya with Chug Splashes. It's a matter of time to see who's able to close this one out. Vanya did an amazing job putting himself away from the aggression and now kind of looking around. Malabuka remembered that Chug Sprite, that water sprite was still there. They healed in the storm originally. Vanya trying to see if he can find any heal here. That's the difference maker, but unfortunately for Malabuka, Vanya is gonna out-heal, securing that victory royale for game number 2.
Ooh la la, Nikov, I know you are going absolutely crazy right now, witnessing a little bit of success here for the mates as game 2 goes the way. And I can't really establish them as an underdog trio at this point, Takada, because they've certainly been creating a name for themselves this season.
Look, there's a reason they have the most victory royales in the Div Cup finals. They know how to close these matches out. They know how to play the meta, and they did it perfectly throughout this game. Not only holding high ground, but also picking up enough eliminations on the players rotating in, having, Marius, Pixie drop down and fragging out when they needed to get those refreshes, and ultimately closing it out with the heal off, having more heals, constantly scouting for more, and doing everything you need to close out that match.
You just have to feel a little bit there for Malabuka, Ping, and Walks, because when a 140 Chug Jug isn't enough to seal the deal, Takada, then what is? And that's something that only our analysts can answer.
Thank you very much, guys. Vanya, Pixie, and Marius, they're bringing back memories of Major number 1 when they had a fantastic day 1, and they're here to do it again. Queasy wasn't around to take high ground. Well, it's up for grabs, and these guys took it and managed to maintain their ownership until the very end, Levin.
Yeah, and it seems like a bit of a trend for these guys. Whenever Queasy isn't around to play high, they're usually the ones that look to try take it themselves, and in those games, if they can make the most out of them, because there's a good chance there's not going to be many opportunities for you to not have Queasy playing for height, you got to play them like this, and they did incredibly well there, Mini.
Yeah, they really did. I think this is what Camisette and Hari would have had if Queasy wasn't in the lobby last game, right? They dominated height for large parts of that end game, all the way around to the end. And of course, they had the heals at the end as well. That takes some doing as well, just being able to prioritize those white heals at this stage of the game. So important for them. I want to highlight Pixie as well there at the end, just doing so much damage, dropping down. What an amazing performance from him.
Yeah, he was just going crazy. I mean, You know, we always see people obviously big up Vanya because he's been doing so well when compared to Fortnite and EU for a while. Marius, of course, gets all the hype on TikTok and whatnot, you know, after his pop-offs last year. But Pixie, this guy is one of the best fraggers in the region, doesn't get the credit for it. But my oh my, if he can keep on putting on performances like this, he will start to get that credit in abundance.
When it comes to trios, we've heard a lot of the pros say that this is the kind of Fortnite where we're going to see the consistency from the duos that we know and love, and I feel like we're definitely going to see that this weekend. So we'll be back after this short break to talk about how our top trios fared in game number 2. Marius, Pixie and Vanya took game number 2 in our Major 2 Grand Finals. And let's talk about where our other trios came, because it was another hotly contested endgame, ending with a very dramatic heel-off. But first of all, actually, I want to talk about who came in third, because iDrop is one of the players, and the trio, I should say, Minnie, that you mentioned in the pre-show as potentially booking themselves a spot in the Global Championships in Lyon today, or this weekend, I should say. And it seems like your confidence is paying off, Minnie Miner.
Yeah, looking pretty good so far. First place, can't get much better than that. And even that endgame I was watching, I was thinking, oh yeah, it's looking pretty good now. And then, of course, Vanya's team ended up winning, so Eleven's also going to be very happy. But looking good, though. Overall, iDrop, Sky, and Scroll, they're a team that we know can play endgames very well. We know we broke down this last major as well about how good they are at playing all different facets of the game, low, mid, and height. So they have all that in their locker. And it seems like everything seems to be coming together right now for them. Just the way they're able to play Storm Surge that we broke down at the beginning of today. And, I mean, that endgame from these guys, absolutely absolutely unreal. The way that iDrop was able to survive for so long was great. And just the amount of eliminations, Levin, that they were able to get was just so good for them.
Yeah, so much firepower in this team. I mean, look, myself and many other people in the community sort of felt like this team's honeymoon period had ended, you know, at the end of last season. What a great time to reignite the passion. I mean, if this is the time for that fire to come back, I mean, there's no better time for it than here in the finals. iDrop stepping into the role and getting those frags as well is huge for them, right? Because I think when you think of firepower in this team, your mind first of all goes to Sky and Scroll, but he can contribute as well. And, you know, you're right. This team has the right setup. I mean, we know these three are good players. It's just about, again, delivering game after game. We're only in the second game. There's so many more matches to be played. Can they keep up this momentum? I sure hope so.
Meanwhile, Malibuca, Vox and Ping, they are keeping up the momentum that they found in game number 1, Levin. What a performance by Malibuca. It really came down to the wire with this one.
I thought this was going to be like instant karma for me, because like in the game before I was like, yeah, like the way they play might not lead to the wins, but they're going to get lots of good games and high eliminations, and they just almost came out and won straight away, which would have been funny. So thank you, Vanya, for saving me on that front. Regardless though, this is what they do, right? And you know, it's funny to me, like I say, because a lot of people I think weren't too high on these guys coming in, like not as high as you would be considering their team that came second. Again, it wasn't a diss to them when I said like they're the boring team at the start, right? It's not like they're boring to watch, they're thrilling to watch. It's just, you know, they're the team that's already called globals, and they're in a good spot. It's almost too easy to say that they're gonna do well, right? But then they just come through and do well, and that's what you expect from veterans, that's what you expect from top talent in Vox and Ping. I want to see it continue game after game here.
Yeah, and to be honest, the way they played this game, it would be a win more often than not, right? In maybe 8 out of the 10 games, you'd probably win that game. The team on Hype wouldn't have, I think Vanya had like, what, 2 of those med miss. He had another chug, he had splashes. Like, it was just an absolute madness that he had up there in terms of heals. So I think the way they played that game was absolutely perfect. They just got to keep getting there. They just got to keep getting to that stage, and sat in second place right now, looking really good and showing us what they can do, which they haven't necessarily shown us what they can do in the last few weeks.
Do you have any concerns, though, Mini Minor, about this trio, despite the performance they've had so far?
I think the only way that I would be a little bit concerned is the fact that they are already qualified to globals, so they might take a bit of a back seat, as Levin mentioned at the beginning of the show. You know, Malibuca's had that, of course, previously. I think last year it was Malibuca and Mustache winning, and then the next major they got like 6th, so it wasn't like an amazing sort of comeback of form for them. I don't expect them to drop all the way down, though. I think they're going to keep up what they're doing.
Well, it was an interesting game number 2, especially as we saw some of our big name trios, Veno's trio and Queasy's trio in particular, go down in the mid game. So let's see if they can pick themselves back up again and give us the game 3 we deserve as we head back to Takata and Taco.
One thing's for sure, everybody is going to be on super high alert because of what Vico, Veno, and Flixie have done throughout the course of the first 2 matches, Takata. But we are approaching the halfway point of day 1, match 3, nearly underway, and I'm excited to get into it.
No, I'm just as excited. It's like a mini game, right? Where is Vico Veno Flixie gonna land? You know, are they gonna end on Ferdoxy's team? Are they gonna just keep going back and forth? Are they gonna do a new spot every time? All I know is that the battle bus is ready, the engine started up, so let's get right into game number 3.
Surely they pay Ferdoxy's team a visit at least once.
Come on.
I don't care if it's today. It's gotta be sometime though between today and tomorrow, or I'm just gonna be shell-shocked. Because Mass Meadows is really where all of this started. Queasy having, I think, a little bit of influence over this outcome currently too for the map, is because he was the one that actually coached Ferdoxy's team throughout the Last Chance qualifiers, just paying back a huge favor from the previous season, and Ferdoxy having taken the time to help out Queasy and Thomas when they were teamed up, doing a little bit of off-spawn practice. But that's neither here nor there. Can't get too caught up in the past, because right now, Mr. Savage, Vidil, and Reason, they've got a whole mess to deal with at the Big Ben Tunnel, as is expected. Chap, Tayson, everybody kind of just trying to find their footing. Skvi overhead. It might only be mere seconds before they clash, and Tayson just trying to keep himself protected, just trying to make sure he's united with Chicho and Atris. Doesn't want any unexpected blows early on.
Yeah, we haven't seen too much of this kind of fight conclude early on. Normally both trios have been making it out. In terms of Vico, Veno, Flixi though, I'm hoping it's not just Vico. Okay, all three of them are good. It looks like they're kind of playing more of the split route, and then from the split, you know, third party, whichever team is fighting it out. But looks like they're back closer to Outlaw once again, but haven't started the third party yet.
Yet being the key word here, because we know that they love to get scrappy. They've already done so in the past 2 lobbies. They were able to open up with huge 3-piece eliminations successfully in each of those lobbies. But you want to keep that ball rolling, and considering that they had an early spill in the last match, Takada, that's the last thing that they want to repeat. And Flixi, if he's not careful, just one receiving end too many of those warning shots. Focus, Janus for Strokey, they are closing in.
It's like, what, 4 or 5 trios here, Taco?
Too many trios.
A whole cluster. They talked about clusters, you know, trying to find areas where you have a good opportunity to kind of take shots at each other, but this is like a whole party, and I don't think these players want to take that on so quickly into this match. So although Focus with Strokey and Janus got some good tags onto Vico, Veno, and Flixi, they're not going to continue pushing through. They saw the danger that entails.
Just would have been a self-sabotage if they actually kept trying to pressure Veno, Vico, Flixi. From the approach that they're making, they could tell way too many teams in the distance, just like we knew. A little bit less flooded, though, at Flooded Frogs. Venya, Marius, Pixie, trying to make quick work of their off-spawn, just building up their loop path, and wanting to see if they can be a reoccurring theme to find those Victor Royales in this Major 2 finals.
Going back into Vico, Veno, Flixi in Crime City. Looks like they're going to be opening up the vault here. I'm trying to see, yeah, it's Chap that doesn't want to let that one slide too easily. They know that they were going up against Tayson at the drop spot. You want to go to areas where there already is a trio fighting to be kind of that third one in there, but Vico's going to get cracked. Just one shot away from getting knocked down. Flixi makes it into the vault, and that was a close one, but Chap still does not want to let that one slide.
Just because you're in the vault, though, doesn't mean that you're actually going to be able to make it out. And Vico, he's relatively hurt. But sure, Veno, Flixi, Vico, they might have the benefit for the time being of controlling the vault, but they might actually just find themselves trapped unless Faded, Moneymaker, and F9 have something to say about it. They could potentially indirectly force Chapsky and Teeny away from this location inside of Crime City's vault, but Chap does not want to let Veno's team wiggle their way out of this one. Even if there's pressure spilling in from elsewhere, they are determined to stick around and see that they can get some damage done onto Veno's team, if not successfully eliminating them.
I like how it's not even Tayson's trio. That's kind of like around here. It's Moneymaker's trio. Tayson's like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'll let you guys do your thing. I'm going to continue on with my route. And it looks like it's also how they let Vico, Veno, and Flixi make it out of the vault. Decided, you know, you can only wait so long.
No, they're trying to be so careful. They know this is too good to be true, if it usually is. In that scenario, this Vico, a couple of shots being fired. F9, Moneymaker, Faded. They want to close in. Issues definitely continuing to build, though. Now checking in with Magic Mosses, Darm, Pix, Demus. They love utilizing the black market at Magic Mosses, but it could potentially come at a price they're not willing to pay just yet. Recognizing that Cringe, Volko, Kiddo a little bit faster to the punch.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it before. They tend to get like these really big games or kind of mid games, right? Got 27th game 1, 4th game 2. So we'll see if Demon Storm and Pix can kind of figure out what's going wrong. But the leaders of the pack, Mini Miner with a smile on his face, I drop Sky and Scroll, getting a bit of that fire once again, like Levin was alluding to. But you know, in this part of the game, they're not taking those risks. They're just, you know, taking shots where they see them. And I don't think we'll kind of see them get into an engagement here.
It's not the first time that we've seen this trio leading on the placements for a leaderboard in a major finals, but holding it is a completely separate conversation, and that's something that they're going to have. Ooh, Sky.
Oh,
might want to direct his. You might want to sit this one out.
You might have been looking at the Sky too long or something. I don't know what went wrong. Double headshotted.
Probably happy he's not getting turbo keyed for it. That could change though on a moment's notice. All of these teams in their surge bases, it's almost like a facade of a safety net, because you would think that teams wouldn't be willing to get up close and personal, but when you get massive tags like that, it's almost impossible to not want to get more directly involved. As Vico, Veno, Flixie, Crime City.
Ooh.
This is a very familiar background for them, and getting that initial elim onto Faded is definitely going to help out with their current predicament, but they're still having to deal with Chap and Teeny. Svi revisiting Fnatic Moneymaker, also trying to make sure that they can play for a little bit of backup. Even if they're a little bit split, it won't necessarily prevent them from completely engaging with this fight.
I mean, the good news is they do have that black market close by. They have the option to kind of get some heals, but in the meantime, you don't want to like fully take these fights. They got the knock, but with a trio and a duo in the surrounding area, you know, not too worth it. But Team Chap and Skibidi might want to capitalize on that now that they're left alone. Levin was talking about this. Queasy, Swizzy, and Merstash, they have this kind of mountain they like to play on a little south of Seaport, and a perfect pull to continue there. It opens up the option to kind of, you know, take shots at all the trios that have to rotate through the south side of the map, even a little southeast.
Typically, you'd see teams trying to surge base on the north and south sides of Seaport to just fully control the flow of the lobby, but they're just exclusively directing their focus towards that southern border. They want to prevent any teams from having those freer rotates, and they know that they can stick around. Got fishing options if need be. And other teams just looking to utilize those black markets instead. Reason could use a little bit of help here dealing with Twy. So immediately Vadil looks to play backup, but Mr. Savage also making sure that they can finish what they started. And Twy, Valhalla, they've definitely been off to a rough start here today.
It's like a constant hunt, right? It's like Mr. Savage, Vadil, and Reason. You know, they didn't want to be contested, but when they were, they're like, okay, we're going to fight. Doesn't matter if we don't do it in the early game. We're going to fight you. And it's clearly going their way. Even if they end up picking their eliminations a little later on, I mean, they still get the job done. As iDrop has gone down, our leading trio. Was it just iDrop? Is Sky and Scroll still looking good? We'll have to see kind of how they're able to come back if they even have the chance to. Pink.
Yeah, find out next time. Observer POV scans back over, but they're not the only ones dealing with a little bit of a predicament. Pump Power, Demon's Dojo, split smack dab in the center of the action. Pink, Kiro, Nebs, and Pink, he's got a lot of faith in his teammates. Kiro, distinctly, the fact that Pink would put him in such high regard and just constantly gassing up his trio mate, that's a lot of confidence to instill, and could go a long ways for them. Here dealing with Volko, Kiruo, Cringe, Volko trying to see if he can get something started. Cringe, crouching, lurking, just waiting for Nebs to overpeak for a moment. He might even be able to approach from a blind line of sight. Nemesis isn't careful, but Pink, he's gonna be the real one under duress here. Pink forced to drop immediately, but Cringe, Volko, they weren't able to finish him off. And that's gonna allow Pink a moment to just reunite with the rest of his team.
Pink had a rough start to 2025. It would be nice to see him, have a great performance here in the major finals. They're already doing a decent job in 7th place, so all they have to do is kind of hold on in these early to mid games and keep getting to those lates. As we look at one of the most, if not the most consistent trios throughout the day today. Malibuca, Ping, and Wox. Levin mentioned it. I mean, they're already qualified to the Global Championship alongside Vico, Veno, and Flixi, but they are still showing why they ended up qualifying in just the first major of the year.
Hey, Lone Wolf might not have a black market, but it does have a vault and plenty of resources to kind of build off of. And that is for sure the intention behind Malibuca's team. iDrop, Sky, and Scroll, though, all back together yet again. So successful rescue mission by Sky and Scroll. iDrop definitely going to be happy to be back in action with his teammates, but they've got a lot of heavy lifting to do here, Takada. They are so far out in Storm, and even if they're able to make a pass next to that backwoods black market, they're still so far behind on Surge now compared to what they had probably started off with.
I got faith, though. I mean, starting off so strong with matches, that big, it gives you a good kind of motivation boost moving into the next ones. A good bit of confidence if you have to take those fights. As Sangold actually just got knocked in front of them to Storm. If they have the right timing, they might be able to make something happen. Kami said Ihari, it looked so good starting off the day. They were pulling all the zones, but in game 2, they weren't quite able to put on the performance that they would have wanted to. So hopefully now they can kind of fix up their mistakes.
You will never be able to convince me that Seti, Kami, and Hari aren't a leading favorite, though, when they are uncontested and in a competitive meta that prioritizing dealing with these Surge bases. These guys are potent as ever. And Kami, he's just going to focus up on making sure that they've got more than enough mats, more than enough materials to work with for wherever they decide to rotate next. Hardy and Seti holding the teams on an island at bay. Akira, spot of trouble here. He's got pressure coming in from the team outside of the Surge base on the island, but he's also got to deal with the team directly fighting him. And big elimination onto Volko, Cringe, and Kiruo. Nowhere left to run. Unfortunately for him, the Shogun playing a huge part. Karamo should be able to utilize a double revive, but the Shogun getting involved, that's gotta be a tick for the Aussie Antics bingo board, right?
The Shogun 1v3 would be crazy if he continued forward. We can see a replay of how this kicked off, though. Huge shot onto Cringe, kind of gave them that upper hand in the fight. But Vico, Veno, Flixi once again battling it out. Vico has been eliminated. Flixi falls shortly after, and now it's all up to Veno as he goes down. 26th place once again, matching their placement from last match. This is not what you want to see from a trio that's already qualified to the Global Championship.
But what's crazy is that this started off in Crime City, and now Chaptini, they actually chased out Veno's trio all the way to the likes of Lone Wolf Lair, and it might just pay the ultimate price here because Jewel, Sandguild, they are clearly on the hunt for a little bit of additional surge damage, if not just getting that siphon in the first place. But Jewel just not healthy enough to match it. Teeny finds the shots, able to switch out that infiltrator now for a sentinel pump, and that is already a massive win for Chapentini, as now they leave Lone Wolf with 7 eliminations, but they want to bring Skvi back into this.
Yeah, and they'll be able to do exactly that. I mean, they cleaned up that fight at the same time, basically. As you can see, they not only finished up the previous one quickly, but this is huge for Chaptini and Skvi. They're looking like they're in a kind of rough spot to play out this tournament, but they're making the best out of it. And it looks like Noms, Awa, Olo, and Twire now at Seaport. They did kind of have that battle against Mr. Savage in the early game. I believe 2 of them went down, but having to go against Mr. Savage into Queasy shortly after, this is not really the position you want to be in.
This is exactly what Queasy's team was after. They opt to stick around so often inside of the Storm because they know we can play the dead side rotates, we can play the wraparound angles, and we can also look to punish teams that are playing for the reboot inside the Storm. Twy, Noms, just more bodies being added to the count here. The Swizzy, Merstash, and Queasy will now have the luxury of picking which direction they head next because Avahalo has been capitalized on.
Oh.
Queasy will need the double revive, but no real pressure for concern just yet.
iDrop, Sky, and Scroll, they're back in the game. They had a rough start, though, after iDrop ended up getting knocked, and now, as iDrop's gotten eliminated, Sky and Scroll, or at least are able to pick up a couple knocks, and alongside that, some eliminations as well. But they gotta be careful. Sky's already fully cracked. Scroll has to try and finish Focus off. There's more trios in the surrounding area. They're dead center of zone. All eyes are going to be on them. They have to finish this up quickly, but as Sky gets knocked, Scroll's left alone. It's gonna be impossible to bring them back in the game. This is not an ideal situation for the #1 trio in the lobby right now.
1 step forward, 2 steps back. They might have been able to get the reboot off onto iDrop, but you don't get to pick and choose your fights after that. When you are so low on Surge, even with the eliminations they did gather, they were just so incredibly low there. Takata, I'd be very surprised to see them make something out of that scenario in comparison to a trio like Malibuca, Walks, and Ping. Just chilling at Magic Mosses, currently in a position that could look to definitely control who actually gets to go in and out of this backwards black market.
Yeah, this is gonna be interesting depending on where this zone pulls as well for this late game, how close the black market is. It's interesting how many trios are still, you know, outside the zone despite getting closer and closer to that 7th zone where storm damage is 5 ticks per second. They know that there's got to be those trios that are playing zone kind of making their way in now.
Scroll has nowhere left to run, though. He's just trying to pick off whatever shots he can. But when you're gazing out into the distance as a solo in 7th zone of all places, Takata, it is so difficult to actually try and convert this into anything more than maybe a handful of extra placement points. And already Scroll, the moment that he pops up, Focus immediately looking to take advantage, but the slide knockoff actually takes out Focus. Scroll will end up also being eliminated in the mix-up here, but it's just the fact that Focus even gets slide knocked in the first place.
That is insane to knock off your opponent like that, elim him to fall damage, but you know, his teammates were there. Not too much trouble so far.
It's gonna delay them though.
Yeah, I mean, the rotate's gonna be more difficult. They gotta use some whites now. That is quite unfortunate. Now, in terms of high ground, Mr. Savage here right under, I believe, Queasy's whole trio here. They're playing for that 8th zone pull. Will it pull towards them? Will it not? I don't know if they care. They might go for it either way, but so far their job, do enough damage and be ready for whatever happens when that 8th zone appears.
So long as Queasy is in a lobby, much less a finals lobby, you can never expect height to be a guarantee for anyone who isn't Queasy. Merstash, Swizzy, just keeping tabs on the flanks, trying to ensure that the direction that they choose to head next is completely cleared out.
Now, Thomas HD, despite getting 15th in the last match, he is still leading the whole lobby in terms of damage. Almost 3,000 damage, 2nd place at 2,400 being Merstash. I mean, this guy does not miss. 300 above already. They've got that elimination, but Reason has gone down. Savage and Vidil, they fought Queasy, Swizzy, Merstash. They wanted to play for that height. They lost now both of their teammates. Savage is left alone, and at just 27 HP, a sliver of HP. One tick of surge would be all it takes, but they go down before being able to pick up those points in the late game. That is a crucial, devastating end to game 3.
And Swizzy knew that it's Chap and Teeny now on the other end of this mid-ground layer, because Merstash, he kind of kickstarted all of this, finding that initial elimination onto Reason, then continuing his aggression onto Vidil, one after the next. That didn't leave Mr. Savage anywhere to run aside from into the hands of Chap, Teeny, and Svi. Cammy, Hari, Seti trying to take advantage of a lot of the confusion that was starting to build. But overhead on the bridge, cranking up. Cammy wants a little piece of the pie here. When the height conversation starts to take place, this is definitely one of our teams that can heavily threaten Queasy.
Not only did the zone not pull towards Queasy and Savage, but they ended up fighting, like you said, Taco, when it caused Cammy, Seti, and Harry to kind of take that high position once again, similar to game 1, but they have used quite a bit of materials. They might want a pullback to be able to hold this on all the way to the last moving zone, but Pixie, Marius, and Vanya are trying to maybe even chop them down here. They're so close to doing so. This could kind of disrupt them, not only in positioning, but cause them to use a lot more materials once again.
Cammy, Seti, and Hari, they know it can be very difficult to keep control of those teams in your underbelly of that secondary height. Malibuka, Walks, Ping, but they're not looking to let up the pressure anytime soon either. Just immediately taking out Keto. All eyes focus onto Teeny now. He's just under so much heavy fire. The focal point of Malibuka's trio. But Malibuka gonna close off their backside and now continue to tarp his way forward. Doesn't want to get caught in congestion. Mustache and Sweezy though, they've lost Queasy as a duo, a dynamic duo at that. Big elimination onto Darkkeys. That's gonna be an extended lifeline for sure. And another one for Mustache. He can't keep getting away with this. Prax shut down in the crossfire as Mustache now looking to control this secondary height. A little bit of material goes a long way for him and Swizzy.
Just getting started when you got 2 fraggers of this caliber going at it. They're able to clean up a good amount of eliminations. Thomas HD with the pre-edits, looking to see if they can even pick up a refresh. Just 11 builds onto Thomas. Now Zone pulling slightly up this hill. So many trios stuck down below. It opens up that option to kind of take shots on the ones especially low on shield. Where will this pull? It's going to pull towards boxcars, so they don't have to keep elevating themselves. Good for the trios down below. Cammy, Seti, Harry doing an amazing job of maintaining height, and Marius, Vanya, Pixie now ahead of the zone.
But Marius and Pixie, they were looking a little bit low, a little bit stressed on their damage. No longer a concern though. The lobby is thinning out at a rapid rate here. Seti gonna be the first one to drop. Cammy, Hardy still overhead. Seti now looking to see if he can find a point of connection. And Cammy directly overhead, just continuing to ensure that no one can threaten Poland up top. They want their Polska Gura moment, that's for sure. And Swizzy, barely any HP left to work with. A singular tag would be enough to take him out. But he has other plans. Instead, it's going to be Karama on the receiving end. Swizzy waiting for that Siphon to take over. And Swizzy just continuing to manage to squeeze his way through that pullback as well. That elimination onto Akira. They never saw it coming. Swizzy, just a madman.
Swizzy is not finished, as now that Siphon has put him back up to 50 shield, 100 HP to work with, looking way healthier than earlier. The issue is so many trios around them. Marius, though, close by. One shot could be all it takes to pick him up, as now he decides he's going to get to a less congested side of the zone. But going down, it's going to be Fredoxy with a double Chug Jug, making his way back in.
This was a massive risk, though, from Fredoxy. He ate so much damage from Storm. Wax has no idea, though, but Fredoxy wasn't able to close the gap. He couldn't thread the needle. He couldn't find the shot. Malibuka, Wax, they've continued to press forward in the low ground, and Pixie are now punished for it from behind. Wax takes him out. Seti, Hari, Cammy, way up in the skies, though. The zone continuing to pull over this hill face, and this is all but said and done here as Cammy, Seti, Hari just trying to spray out these last couple of remaining opponents on the low ground. Malibuka, Wax doing so much heavy lifting. They've taken out Chino, but they know what lies at the end of the this tunnel. They're gonna have to deal with Poland eventually. And Seti, Hardy, Cammy, they don't want to let this opportunity slip by. They know exactly what they've got in their favor, and they are taking full positional advantage here. Seti closing in, Vanya cleaned up amongst the mess, and Wox hoping that he can get some form of a heal off in tow. Still 5 splashes though for Cammy.
They're gonna need a insane heal off for Wox if he wants to come out on top. The perfect zones for Cammy, Seti, and Hari. All they had to do was capitalize on it, and they have done it. I love to see a victory royale from this trio so early on. They didn't perform to expectations in Major 1. They've been the most consistent trio throughout the Divisional Cup finals here in Major 2. Finally getting a finals uncontested, and now being able to take home the win in Game 3. This is exactly what we've been waiting for.
And a statement game as well from Cammy, Seti, and Hardy. They had been building for it all throughout the course of this endgame, just steadily keeping full control, suppressing the low ground layers, suppressing the mid ground layers, not allowing anybody to actually try and threaten their position. And they still had the heals if they needed them, Takada. And it's just a matter of time, though, before Wox had to surface a clean victory royale at that for Poland. But what do Frankie, Levin, and Mini have to say?
I think I need to ask a quick question, actually. Mini Miner, what day of the grand finals is it?
1.
I thought it was day 2 because Cammy, Seti, and Harry, they're showing up. What's going on, Mini Miner?
Well, they're doing great. I mean, it was a very similar game to what we saw in game number 1 in terms of where the zone pull, right? They had that high ground early on. They took it in that sort of 8th zone. This time, though, worked out much better for them. I think a key element, we talked about it after last game, Queasy wasn't in the lobby, right? They were wounded. They were down to just a duo and then ultimately a solo. So they just had that freedom to play how they wanted to play up on high. Really nice to see them actually picking up a win as well. And I thought they weren't going to get it right there at the end because of the way that zone pulled, but nice to see them getting it done.
I mean, yeah, summed it up pretty perfectly there, to be honest with you. Look, I said at the start of the day, you know, Seti was pointing at that watch, and it is that time. You know, they get that win. I think the big thing for these guys, right, is like, we know uncontested they're going to be good. They're going to get a couple wins here and there. I think a lot of people are going to ask the question of will they have enough limbs to keep up with, you know, the likes of Malabuka and whatnot, who obviously going to be way up there in the standings. And I guess now the other thing that these guys have to start factoring in is, you know, is a team like Veno and them going to start maybe landing near them and giving them problems? Because when they are in these end games, they do this, right? You know, they can play low. We know that, we've seen that, but they also can play high ground incredibly well in these lobbies as well. So really impressed by these guys so far.
Yeah, and it's nice to see them win because I remember last Globals last year, Cammy and Seti actually won a game in that Globals. And the stat that I mentioned and that I was given was that that was the first game in the entire of all of the majors, Major 1, 2, 3, and of course the Globals, where they actually picked up a victory royale. So it's nice to see them actually winning. And thinking back, it's kind of like, yeah, they don't actually win that many games when it comes to the finals. Shows how troublesome they've been in these sort of past few finals. But it's nice to see them doing it here, and maybe this is their time.
Maybe it could be their time. I mean, it was their time in 2022. Why not do a repeat in 2025? We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking all about game number 3. Welcome back to the FNCS Major 2 Grand Finals. And so far today, our first 3 games have truly delivered. So let's talk about our hot favourites, because Queasy went down at the start of the end game there in game number 3. However, he's got fantastic teammates in Swizzy and Mustache. Mustache in particular showing up and showing off, Levin. Yeah,
I mean, this is why, if you're Queasy, you want to be playing with 2 of the best fraggers in the world, because in games where you might not be able to put on the IGL in masterclass, you know they're going to bail you out with their fragging ability. And I mean, again, you know, in this game, it wasn't a spectacular game in terms of just the final finish and everything, but what Mustache and Swizzy are able to do in terms of getting points out of the game in the limbs and just popping off as a duo and then eventually solo, it keeps you in the running, right? It keeps you high up in the standings, Mini.
Yeah, this is exactly what we spoke about last major as well. I know Mustache was one that was just keeping this trio up there, doing so much damage. I think he was the damage leader in last grand or last major finals, and what he was just able to do was just to keep them alive and keep them going. Swizzy doing the exact same, and this is exactly what you need, as you mentioned. I think a lot of their sort of troubles came from that fight. I think it was against Twi's team there at Seaport City. Just went on a little bit too long. Then, of course, they were late getting into the zone, but it's those clutches, those duo clutches right there, and of course, ultimately the solo clutch from Swizzy that really keeps them in the standings.
Can I ask you guys about our team at the top of the leaderboard here? Wox, Malabuka, Ping. I feel like watching them and my untrained non-analyst eye, they've got this high-risk, high-reward play style. Maybe I'm wrong here, because they seem to be the most consistent trio in the lobby so far, Mini.
Yeah, unrelenting pressure in endgame. You're absolutely right. I mean, that's all they do. It's just constant pressure. Those pre-edits coming through yet again, always looking for something. You can even see, look at the amount of builds they have right there. They don't need all these refreshes necessarily. They can just start front side of zone, but what they're able to do is they're able to take advantage of players that aren't looking so good, that are looking in the wood, that are looking sort of a little bit weak on the backside of zone, and really take advantage of their loot and, of course, their refresh. So that's what this team do really, really well, and not an ideal performance from them, of course, in a couple of the games. I think they had a 7th today in one of the games, but a nice sort of second here to clutch up this game.
I mean, I'll take the 7th if I have 2 other seconds.
Well, yeah, that's true. It's not too bad. And they're first.
If I'm sitting on first in the leaderboard, I'm not going to be crying about the second.
They're boring, though. They want to be second every game.
I mean, look, it's funny because Frankie rightfully mentions, like, it's kind of a bit of a juxtaposition, to go back to my GCSE English days, because they are a team that plays, you know, seemingly this high-risk style in these endgames, but they've been the most consistent in getting to endgames and looking comfortable to actually play out that way, right? So, again, this team, I'm liking. You know, if you are someone who believed that they genuinely were going to come out here and win FNCS this season, you will be smiling and laughing at everybody right now.
Let's take a look at the leaderboard again. I'm interested in page number 2, because one of the big talking points so far from today has been Vico, Veno and Flixie deciding, you know what, we're not going to contest for Doxy's trio at Mast Meadows. We're actually going to surprise everyone in the lobby. But to be honest, they've surprised us on the desk, because they're currently sitting in 14th place, and I did not have that on my bingo card for today, Mini Miner.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a great performance from them in game number 1. They made that end game, and it just hasn't quite worked out. Levin, we saw them in that game actually landing in the same spot that they landed in the very first game, but they didn't take advantage of that Oasis fight, so they sort of ended up rotating away. They got beamed in the back, so if they don't do it well, this is the risk of that strategy, right? They could get beamed in the back, they could just enter uncharted territory, but if they do it well, which they now need to, it could really work out for them.
I don't think the problem's actually been the strat, though. Like, when you look at just the actual strat of them, like, sort of landing in different places and looting sort of outskirts and then getting involved in some of the bigger POIs and some of the other fights, that's been working a treat. Like, it's been going really great. It's the after that, like, playing out the rest of the mid-game, going into endgame where they've really had the struggle. So I wonder how that plays in. I think, you know, it's easy to just say, oh, some minor mistakes, but I think the strat is working.
But Levin, would you not maybe agree that if you're going somewhere different that you're used to and you're in slightly uncharted territory, then that's going to maybe unsettle you, especially when the pressure is on?
I think that plays a part, right? Because we know teams have certain rotations they take, you know, due to familiarity of the spot, right? You understand sort of how to play the mid game out from your spot. But I think from how they're trying to play in terms of they're just sort of doing their strat, and then they're mostly just playing on congested side of the zone and like just sort of following the zones, white lining, which they know how to do. It's just the execution of it, right? That's the real problem right now.
Well, they've got 3 more games left this day 1 to pick things up. So let's head over to Taco and Takata to see if they can do it.
Thank you, Frankie. I mean, that stability is kind of what you need in these major finals, though, is the issue. You know, I'm thinking, Taco, is there going to get a point where Vico, Veno, Flixie are like, you know what? We're going to Masked Meadows. We're just going to make it happen. We're going to go for the constant 3v3 every game, or are they going to keep switching it up? What do you think?
They're not a team that needs the element of surprise to manifest their own level of success. We know exactly what they're capable of. We know what kind of standards they set for themselves. And I know I'm excited to see what they do here in Game 4.
Bingo time is here. Where are they going to drop? Is it going to be an outskirts? Is it going to be something new? We also have Mr. Savage, who's been leading in every single game against Twy, Awahalo, and Noms down at the southern kind of snowy mountain split. A lot of interesting kind of early game engagements, but so far consistency is kind of what's lacking for these trios that aren't yet in that top 10, top 5. Very impressed with Malibuca and his trio, but for Pink, Nebs, and Kiro, they're down to 10th place now. They started off incredibly strong with a 3rd, following a 19th and 11th. They're luckily, you know, uncontested, and they can play this out like they have previously. I mean, in the last week of the Div Cup Finals, we talked about it, but even though they were contested, they still got 2nd place. I mean, contested in the sense, the same thing that we're seeing now with Akira down south. It's not actually being contested, but you know, will they be able to kind of get a similar performance? This is interesting.
This is Pump Power currently being threatened by the likes of Vico, Veno, and Felixi. An interesting trio to dance with, though. Demas, Pix, and Darm. They are no rollover team by any means. This could be a little bit more than what Veno, Vico, and Felixi had bargained for. Already finding themselves in a very difficult position because another team has entered the fold. Twy, Noms, Awahalo. They got sick of what was happening at the Big Ben tunnel. They got sick of dealing with Savage, Vidil, and Reason. So now they're trying to thwart Veno, Vico, and Felixi's strategy with the surprise contest last minute. And Darm, Demas, Pix, they'll be able to essentially just scatter on out. They're not in the center like Veno, Vico, and Felixi were. And it's only Vico left standing. He's gonna have to wrap back around, play for a reboot. His teammates no longer with him. Very early demise for a team that we would not have anticipated to be out so soon, but that is part of the risk involved with their current strategy. Pix, Darm, Demas, they're not going to deal with Noms' team.
Yeah, that's the issue. I mean, they were able to kind of get out of the early games in the previous matches, but this time around, it was literally the drop spot that didn't go their way. Awahalo, Twy, and Noms too. Now, most likely leaving Mr. Savage uncontested. This is what he was looking for. Excited to see how that plays out, but for Pix, Darm, Pix, Darm, and Demas, this is kind of tough. I mean, they don't have the upper hand in this engagement. They're low on HP and shield, but the good news is that they made it out without getting knocked. They should be able to recuperate what they lost, and we'll look back to iDrop, Sky, and Scroll that didn't have the best of matches in the last one.
Scroll, though, world of trouble here. Some shots firing in from way out on the horizon. That's going to cause him to kind of take a moment to pause here, reconsider which direction he actually wants to approach, and he's going to opt to drop down a little bit. Moneymaker, F9, and Faded. Priority targets, for sure. But iDrop knows it's not just an outright key. You've got to operate with an air of restraint. Couple of surge-based tags now being extended both ways. And Moneymaker, it's only a matter of time before he got lit up a little bit for it. Still nothing too heavy, nothing that they can't deal with. And they'll fall back at Outlaw Oasis. Oh, Vico.
Oh, no.
Oh, Jewel, too. Could potentially be another target. And Jewel's not careful. Wonder where Sandguild is at. Twy has zero concerns, though. Just gonna focus up on the map farm. They've got Vico, Felixi, and Veno so separated and way out in no man's land. It's gonna be very difficult for them to actually leave the beach side.
Yeah, I mean, at least they're up, though. At least they're on their feet, right? They've got a bit of shield now. They got a bit of loot. It was a very scary start, but they did make it out of it. It's kind of on hard mode now, but it's still possible. And with how, you know, they've been playing it out, just looking for fights. Once again, they're going to be looking for one, but Noms, Awahalo, and Twine might be the initiators, as they know they should have the loot. I was going to say loot advantage, but hold on a second. 4 bullets in the AR, 1 med mist. Both trios kind of in a similar situation in terms of loot, HP, and shield, so I don't even know if this is a fight you want to take.
Twy just committed so much earlier on to the initial chase up against Vico that he never really had an opportunity to properly farm anything. Fortunately, Awahalo will be able to take care of that briefly, but it's not going to be the immediate collapse that they were hoping for up against Vika, Veno, and Flixie. And not only that, but so far north, Noya, Misha, Yasin, they might decide to get involved. By martial maneuvers, fighting frogs. It's a distinctly close area to where they like to drop. These other teams kind of littered all around, gauging whether or not it's worthwhile to leave their surge bases, and I'm pressed to believe it's not likely. Not in the early game.
Definitely not. As we look once again at Malibuca Ping and Walks, they do tend to kind of look for these shots in the early game. They haven't been doing a lot of fights so early on. It's more after the rotations come through. But the back and forths doing what damage they can. Nice little 3-piece from Malibuca. Spare shields to recuperate what they lose. Pretty standard strategy for this trio so far throughout the day.
It's common practice after a certain point for teams that when you know that you're landing near another trio, you tend to just follow the same methods of success. Building those early surge tags. F9, Fade, and Moneymaker. They'll have to pursue those opportunities elsewhere. Trying to tackle Srapt and Hellfire. Srapt, though, incredibly low. Srapt just knocked entirely. F9, pinpoint accuracy, that's for sure. Not willing to fully commit just yet. Has to deal with Tripper and Hellfire just behind him. Doesn't want to get split from his teammate either. So Faded will get the job done. But Tripper, Hellfire, they might still want to stick around. It's very tempting because they can tell that Moneymaker, F9, and Faded, this is definitely a team that's hurting, but they're just in such a similar position. And in fact, they won't even get the choice to decide because Giras, Dinas, and Frenek completely cutting Tripper off. They've left him nowhere to run.
Yeah, now it's just a game of hide and seek. Will they find him in time, or will they just continue moving forwards? As the shots continue to kind of go back and forth for iDrop, Sky, and Scroll this time around. Looking better. They take out Rickbor. And, you know, with already another 3, so 4 total eliminations, it clearly went well for them. As now they can basically just focus on kind of making their way to the later sections of the mid game.
There's just definitely a trend building, though. We've already seen Tripper a handful of times kind of relocate where this trio actually wants to land, and it's just very obvious, Takada, that all of these teams that haven't found that initial success rate, they're trying to see if they can build it elsewhere, but how beneficial can it be continuously moving your drop spot? Oof.
I mean, how beneficial is tough, because like clearly it has pros and cons. You know, you have the aspect of surprise, but at the same time, you can only study so many drop spots from the early to the mid to the surrounding areas. But it looks like they got a nice 3-2-1 onto Vanya, and this is actually going to be huge for Vico, Veno, and Flixie. With the amount of kind of extra loot and mats now they are able to pick up with that damage, they don't have to focus as much on continuing to hunt for those tags. I mean, being on this north side of the map too, close to Magic Mosses with all the heals available, they can stay in Storm as almost long as they want. As iDrop, Sky, and Scroll found the little solo hiding in a box, but Huge pump onto iDrop. Luckily enough, it is a 3v1. You can only do so much.
That's just a farewell note that iDrop definitely hadn't been bargaining for. But looking back at Marius and his current predicament, seeing his teammate Vanya be eliminated at Flooded Frogs, it's forced Marius to leave and just, you don't think about which direction you run. You know that you're just leaving. You are not trying to stick around when there is a one-man advantage and it is not in your favor. So Pixie and Marius, though, they're just going to have to spend so much time now, not only trying to refarm the surge damage that I'm certain Vanya had established in the first place, but just getting their teammate back in general and doing it while there's other teams still looking to pressure you.
Moving through to Kira's Frenic and Dinas. They're looking pretty chill, to be fair. Just kind of making the rotate, but Pixie Marius now, after losing Vanya, Vico, Veno, and Flixie. Pixie goes down as well. It's a whole different trio. Artskill, Exuiz, and Podesai are going to be capitalizing on this situation. This is crumbling down for Vanya here.
Hey, all those teams inside that top 10 of the leaderboard especially gotta be rubbing their hands together, though, seeing that elimination feed light up with Marius's trio. This is a real opportunity to not only overtake where they were at, but really just try to build some leads. If you're Malabuka, Ping, and Wax, for example, they might not have a Victor Royale, but when they're consistently placing high enough to build the points to hold that first place position on the leaderboard, it doesn't really matter if you have the Victor Royale, right? Like, you can just keep focusing on your own strategies.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see how this kind of plays out for iDrop, Sky, and Scroll, seeing, you know, they were favorites last season, getting contested in the end, not performing as well. But now, you know, they're definitely continuing that success. Hopefully they can, you know, keep doing so, since it is 12 matches to be fully played out. This is just the start, the beginning of these finals.
I want to see a lot more, though, from Prodoxy, Chino, and Pablo, because they've essentially gotten their way. They have an uncontested Mass Meadows, or at least that's what it appears to be, with Venovico and Flixie playing around the world. Marius trying to keep the dream alive right now, though. Then Miss Grenade also has a water sprite if need be. But Sky, iDrop, and Scroll, that's a team that loves to get up close and personal. That fight overwhelming, dealing with the Danes here.
Solo after solo, they're just kind of getting free pickings here. Slowly continuing to rack up their elimination counter. As we take a look at Cammy, Seti, and Harry. Once again, they've got, you know, their strat planned out. They've had it from the start of the season. Build up, get tags, farm as many heals as possible. And it's been working. I mean, they can get themselves to the late game, but now coming from that victory royale, hopefully they can continue to push themselves up. They're in 5th, despite not doing it so good in the second match.
I like that, though, from Seti. He's given the high alerts to Hari. Hey, there's a team trying to tarp their way through our territory. And Malabuka is at that. So they're going to have to be very wary moving forward. Chap. He's got Strap, Tripper, and Hellfire hot on his heels. Just hoping that he can escape. Portal gonna get him out, but it might just be delaying the inevitable. What Tripper and Hellfire and Strapped wanted, though, was just this Crime City black market. They don't care where Chap is at. They might choose to pursue that one later on, but they know they've got to get a move on. Flixie, Veno, Vico, they're playing like they've had a fire lit underneath them after that initial elimination onto Vanya Takata. They are not looking to slow their roll anytime soon here. Felix now trying to see if he can buy himself just a moment's notice longer. But Flixie, Vico, especially being one of our more seasoned fighters, and just great pincer there onto Felix. He's so focused on what's in front of him, can't really keep tabs on Flixi approaching from behind. Just a classic scenario for Veno's team.
It's kind of looking like opposite of the previous matches throughout the day, though. They, previously would have a very good off spawn, but then kind of fall apart in that mid-game section of the match. But now, bad off spawn into a solid mid-game. Hopefully they can do just as good of a performance in the late game. Thomas HD continuing, as you can see, to lead the lobby in damage. And I was hyping him up in the last match, but he's increased the gap even more now. You see 4,679 damage. I mean, second place is Franek with 3,500. Thomas literally leading over 1,000 damage. And that is crucial for setting yourself up without having to risk taking those fights to get that Storm Surge damage. These crouch peaks are looking insane, but they got to do, I want them to see them have a solid end game performance. They're getting to these mid games with a good amount of damage, but as you can see, the health isn't looking amazing. They haven't gotten that big point match yet. They're kind of missing that pop-off game.
Definitely a little bit stressed, and also definitely likely because of the team at Seaport City. Queasy, Swizzy, Merstash, and moving past that Titan wall essentially is going to prove a difficulty for anyone, even some of our more experienced players. Thomas HD, though, just proving that the Mythic Drum Gun is anything but a cosmetic weapon in his hands. Certainly an impressive damage stat, no matter what the placements might be looking like. And touched on it briefly, but Merstash, Queasy, and Swizzy, this is just what they do best. Just holding teams at bay here in Seaport, refusing to allow anybody to have the kind of flow that they would naturally look for.
Taking a look at what Ferdoxy's been up to. It's being in Trulex's business. As picks Demus and Darm as well, despite that kind of shaky start due to Vico, Venom, and Flixi contesting them. They did get that elimination, but it probably took them longer to loot the rest of their spot and kind of continue with their general play style off the start of the match, but looking pretty good for them so far.
It's bizarre to think, though, that Abahalo's team, last-minute surprise contesting, Vico, Veno, and Flixi surprise contest onto Pump Power might have actually helped out Veno's trio, because it prevented Demus, Pix, and Darm to want to actually fully commit to the fight. And this is a trio that we know what kind of fighting power they have amongst them. It is not going to be an easy engagement by any means.
I love the rotate potential too from Demus, Pix, and Darm there. They can go the full-on congested side that's not even in the zone yet. When that zone pulls, they'll be in prime position, but with so many trios holding them, it is quite difficult. On the other hand, Hellfire and Srapped here are not in the best of positions. I mean, we saw what Queasy was doing at Seaport. He tends to kind of let these trios rotate in front of them and just continue taking shots at them, which has helped with doing enough damage. But when you're below by 334, you're not even in zone. I mean, you can take the safer route, but you're going to be punished by doing so.
They are definitely in Fortnite competitive poverty, and it happens. Maybe they can look to try and bounce back, but overcoming the amount of surge damage threshold that they've got to deal with as a duo is always going to be a monumental mission. That's for sure. I drop Sky and Scroll. On the other hand, 743 above. It's like a 180 sight to see. And they're just doing what they can. They don't need to get involved just yet with some of the shots being fired around them. They might begin to put a little bit of pressure to the teams behind them, though, because they want to make sure that they're clearing out a route for when they do decide to rotate and leave. The zone pulling over by Demon's Dojo. I don't think anybody's brave enough to actually try and take the geyser.
Yeah, it's a risky move, all right. We can see Reason, Vadil kind of making their way in zone last minute, but when you got a whole trio just looking back at you, you can only make it so far. Nebs, Pink, and Kiro, despite literally landing here, they are in the zone as well. Looks like they want to do an inside of zone rotate to where this zone has pulled. Kind of unfortunate for trios like Camiseti and Hari, who had a primed up position, as now the zone just pulling right back to Pump Power, but in the sense of kind of opening up vision, they have an incredible amount on these trios that have to rotate in. Looks like they're gonna take the earlier rotate though option instead of staying back to get those shots.
They want to make sure that they're not going to become the lobby focus. You know just how rapidly even the best looking spots can fall apart whenever the whole lobby decides to look your way. Thomas, Panzer, and Uppel, though, saw them moments ago, kind of caught up with Demonstorm and Pix. And I believe they got at least one elimination, but they're trying to wrap around the lower side of this mountain face. They're trying to stay out of visuals for the team on height. But down in the dirt has its own share of problems, as Swizzy, Merstash, Queasy are also trying to mastermind a way to take over the more optimal positions, but Merstash completely torn apart. Not sure if that was a solid 3-2-1 endeavor, but the double revive will bring him back into the fold. It's just the fact that Queasy, Swizzy, Merstash, they're not as safe as they once believed.
Yeah, that's not what you want to look for in these parts of the match where getting knocked just causes all eyes to go onto you. Good news is, though, the zone hasn't pulled incredibly far from them. The bad news is it pulled to the side where every single player basically is, so you can only capitalize so much on that. Vico Venoflixi showing kind of the cons of their early game being a bit below here as well. Forced to do what they can, but nice shots getting connected. Now they're above with a little time to heal back up and look for that rotate.
Pump power just working against them, though. Even if they were a little bit higher up than the rest of the lobby, all these buildings, all these natural surfaces just cutting off their lines of sight. So they are pressed to try and find more damage. Either that or eliminations need to start picking up, because everybody's kind of just dogpiling inside the heart of Pump Power. And Veno, Flixi, Vico, they want to get a move on. They don't want to get caught up in the congestion that's bound to start building behind them, trying to be some of the first ones towards this next front side. But they know dealing with low ground means probably having to deal with iDrop's team. And in the sky, Swizzy, Merstash, and Queasy, they have wasted absolutely no time, but just underneath them, Malibuca, Ping, Walks, holding it down in that secondary height position.
Oh, they've just been too consistent. You cannot let Malibuca, Ping, and Walks get another second place or first or even just top 3. As it looks like Cammy has found a refresh, but this trio not looking healthy at all. Only 15 above. Cammy fully cracked. Zone, opposite side of the map. They do have those water sprites to quickly heal up, but this is going to be a tough rotate.
Hari has so many builds, though. He could opt for a pre-edit play here onto Panzer's team from behind. Instead, he's going to pause. Only for a second, though. They don't have that much time to work with. They've got to get out of the pressure zone of dealing with some of these surge ticks. Teams like Malibuca, Walks, Ping, done an excellent job at maintaining their surge levels, are full firing into the backside of a Hollow, Noms, Twy, just a step behind the rest. And if it's not SETI, it's going to be the lurking hands of Malibuca's team, just one by one picking off these players that were trying to commit a little bit further back of zone. Veno, Flixi, just narrowly avoiding that focus coming out of Malibuca's team. But Sky and Scroll, they're just trying to see whether or not they can even maintain their footing in the first place. All these teams surrounding them, just trying to see whose floor they can chop out from underneath. Instead, from behind, gotta be really careful here. Don't want to lose your head in the process. And Malibuca, Ping, and Walks lurking, waiting. Sky is so weak, and they want this elimination.
They've got to be careful. Shot goes through, though. Sky gets knocked down. Vico Venoflixi, once again looking healthy. They also have a good amount of materials. They have gotten the refresh they needed as Chino goes down. This is massive for this trio. They need a big game to put themselves back on the leaderboard, and this could be the one.
A win would definitely be huge here for Vico's team, but Veno, Flixi, they're just trying to tarp ahead. They're just trying to make sure that they keep their backside closed off as well, because Xsui's up above, Pablo Wingo down below. Pablo Diablo just trying to see if he can even make his way forward. Killua and Volko have somehow managed to get their hands on the high ground with Cringe, but they are so incredibly low. Can they even maintain it? Wax being a Malabuka might want to get involved, but Vico, he's going to be the first one trying to cut out the team from height. The chop is a success. Veno immediately cranking up. Vico right behind him.
They take out every player that was in the sky, as now they are controlling the upside of this hill, continuing to shoot down from above. This is exactly what they wanted, and now they are in prime position to close it out. Their main issue, their main competitor is going to be Malabuka, Walks, and Ping. They're going to go for the side rotate. Chug splashes come through, but Vico, Veno, Flixie, they saw the future. They know what they have to do to maintain this high ground. Malabuka gets knocked down. Walks shortly after. The whole trio disintegrated into the mountain as Vico and Flixie now looking to close this off. It's a 3v3, but as Flixie goes down, Tidy falls shortly after. It looks like Veno and Vico just have to take a couple shots and finish this one up.
They made it over the mountain base. That's all they had to do. And Jewel will be the last one standing, but not for much longer. Too easy. Veno, Vico, and Flixie, what looked like a little bit of an oops-a-daisy, just turned into a massive victory royale. They definitely needed this win. They could not afford another disastrous start, Takada, and bringing it back. When you think about the initial starting point, that's just something that you know was manifested from experience.
100%. They were getting eliminations in their previous matches, but they were going down so early. 11th, 26th, 27th, and even this game almost going down off spawn. But somehow, Taco, they were able to not only recuperate their off spawn, recuperate their mid game, but also get those refreshes coming into this late game to give them enough fragging power, enough mats, enough loot to close out the whole match. They retook height, and now with that big pop-off game, they've planted themselves back into the top 10 on that leaderboard. Frankie, 11 Mini, you gotta tell me what we just witnessed.
Well, I think what we witnessed was Vico, Veno, and Flixie looking like lunch meat off spawn, and suddenly they made a meal of the Lobby 11. But how did they do it?
It's a bit poetic from you. They recovered the game well. Vico quickly was able to get them back up and running, and that's what you need sometimes. You know, he's not necessarily the player you associate in that trio with being, you know, sort of cool, calm, and collected in those sort of pressure situations. But he does a great job. And they play out the game from there, and they do it so well. I talked, you know, before last game of just how they need to figure out the mid-game parts, and the execution needed to be better. The game plan they've been trying was working, albeit one of the shakier attempts at it in this game. But things played out from there, which was really nice, Mini.
Yeah, really nicely done from this team. I think they were definitely helped by the fact that the zone was literally right where they ended up landing. So if they can keep following where those sort of late game zones go, it'll help them, I'm sure, a lot. But really nicely played. I mean, the way they played the 10 game, this height take right here was absolutely beautiful. We saw that Queasy and Co were just down on height. There was, I think, 3 teams going for it all at once. Then, of course, Kiddo, Volko, Cringe tried to take it, and they all came crashing down right there. And it was just really, really nicely played. They needed to be up on that height level, and what they did was just spray down so effectively well.
Yeah, no, they always take zone, or take height, sorry, in that time in there, right? Sort of like towards the end of the 10th zone, 11th zone. You saw Veno was at the front side of the zone, ready to build up, right? As soon as those two were chopping, very coordinated height take from these guys. And then, you know, you just let them do what they do. Go frag out, go close the game out, finish it off for us, Flixie. Really nice game. I mean, Vico, 8 eliminations in that game. 9, sorry, to end it. Mental.
Can I just ask, though, very quickly before we go to break, were the Fortnite gods also smiling on this trio mini miner? Because that pulling zone as we went into zone 12, it was perfect for the guys, but I just can't imagine any of the trios making it up the mountain to contest them. Yeah, well, that's the reason why they wanted to go for high, right? They saw the zone was pulling over there. They understood they need to be up above the rest of the lobby. The way they were to apply pressure down to Malabuka, they knew they needed to be there. It was just about getting there, which they were very good at doing as well. Well, we will have an updated leaderboard for you guys very shortly because we've got to go to a break, but we'll see you in a few. Welcome back to the FNCS Major 2 finals. I've been told I'm not allowed to say daddy on the broadcast, but instead I'm going to say shout out to Vox's father, because apparently he's watching, and he's watching you, Mini Miner, because you had some doubts, maybe. Let's not say doubts. You were not giving his son's trio the props they were due, because you were like, oh, they got second, and they only got a 7th one time. I think they got a 6th in that last game, Mini Miner. And we have to say that this trio delivers game after game after game.
It was a 4th.
It was a 4th, yeah.
Don't come after me, Wox's daddy.
Yeah, for a little bit of context here, Wox's dad has become an out-of-context Mini Miner clipper and posting it on socials. He's posted me saying that 7th wasn't a good game. Of course, by their high standards, it's not as good, and this game was a very good game as well. They don't have any bad games, as it seems, at the moment. They've had another great performance in endgame, 4th place in this game, as you correctly mentioned, Levin, and they're just doing what they do best. Of course, the final few moments weren't quite to be for them. I like the idea that they had Malibu going at the side of the hill, and look at this, Vico actually took them out from behind. So Wox here was just thinking, all right, we'll just make our way up, and you're thinking, who is this? It's Vico jumping on down. So the pressure that the trio on height were able to apply were great, but it didn't stop them from being in the top spot there.
In that moment as well, I was like, oh my god, surely not another 2nd place. And it's funny because had Wox lived like 3 more seconds, it would have been another 2nd place. Like there's so many teams went down just in a matter of seconds. This team though, their consistency has just been relentless. Again, it's like, you know, whenever we come to the back end of the day, you're always looking at the teams towards the top, like, you know, who's going to actually be competing come game 12. And I feel very confident saying now that it's going to be these guys, right? It's going to be these guys and somebody else with the way they've been playing. It's just been phenomenal so far, to be honest. We're seeing an all-timer performance from these guys so far.
If you actually look at the points as well from 1 to 3, and then that big gap between 3rd and 4th, it's so impressive, the placement points in particular that Malibu and well, in fact the points in overall, I should say, that Malibu's trio are picking up. Let's talk about Cammy, Seti and Harry as well, because they are having a fantastic day 1. I made a joke about them being a day two team earlier, but they're making very stable plays for the high ground, Levin.
No, absolutely. And you know, I don't want to be that guy, but when you do look at that leaderboard and see where they lack in comparison to some of the teams above them, it's just their limbs, right? You know, Thomas and them are similar. I think Thomas and them had like 15. These guys have 16 so far. But that is always going to be the point of contention people will look at when it comes to this team. Be consistent all you want. Can you frag like Malibu's trio? That's what it's going to take to win.
Yeah, and I don't want to be that guy, but we've had a lot of north zones so far, right? I don't think we've actually had that south zone, so I'm intrigued as to how they're going to do. And even those teams like Malibu's team who do land in the north, how are they going to do when we do get some south zones, if we do, either today or tomorrow? So that's a big question mark for me, but there's no doubt that this team can definitely perform well and be in that top 5 at the end of it all.
Well, we went into day 1 knowing that Queasy's trio were the ones to watch, 11. Do you feel like they are still holding on to that position as the trio most likely to win, even if they're not number 1 right now?
Yeah, I'm still feeling really good about these guys. And I say that because they're 2nd place. They obviously had a win today, which was a great performance. But like the rest of the games haven't been like these like standout performances where we're all like, oh my god, Queasy classic, go IGL. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like they've just been playing well. They've had some good moments. Mustache and Swizzy have come up with some good clutches at times. And so like for me, they still have another gear to go up, right? They still have a couple more gears to go up. And I think we'll see that towards either the back end of today, but definitely tomorrow.
Yeah, we didn't get to see exactly how that high ground fell for them. I think they might have tried to get a little bit too greedy with some of the refreshes in the Storm, and ultimately some of the teams saw that. But a little bit of a misplay there. Looking at their material counts, you would expect them to stay up on high, particularly in that position. But yeah, as you correctly mentioned, they're a team that have already got a win. They're looking good. They're a team that can stay up in this sort of area of the leaderboard. Obviously not the ideal game for them in that last one, but if any team can pull anything out of the hat, it's going to be them.
Very quickly for everyone watching at home, if you're not aware, Vico, Veno and Flixi and Malibuca, Ping and Vox, they've already got their spots in the Fortnite Global Championship. So really, we're looking at the top 7 here. Thomas, Uppel and Panzer, they're currently within it. I wouldn't say too comfortably yet, though, so far, Levin. We were having a conversation about this. What do you think for them needs to change in order for them to secure a victory royale? I should say, we're having a conversation off air about this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can't be too comfortable on day 1, right? Especially when it comes to the global spots. Those are so volatile at times. Fortunately, we ain't got 1.5x anymore, so a bit more stable come day 2. But these guys, again, it's just about cleaner end games, right? You know, they're making it to these end games, but can they actually deliver and actually, you know, sort of make them top 5s turn into top 2s?
Yeah, Apple, I should say Apple. Who's that? Apple secured third place in that last game. So hopefully this is a sign of things to come, Mini Miner.
Yeah, hopefully for them. I mean, they're doing enough damage. I know Kinch in the back was telling us about all the damage that Thomas is getting with that mythic drum gun, doing exactly what he did in the groups, absolutely popping off. So their setup is looking really good. Their game plan leading up to these end games is also looking really strong. It's just whether they can perform in those high pressure situations.
Well, their pressure is piling up, guys. Only 2 more games left of day number 1 of the Major 2 Grand Finals. So let's head back to our casters, Taco and Takata.
All I've gathered from that analyst desk segment is that Mini Miner is out here preying on the fall-offs of certain players and teams, Takata, but we are witnessing the come-ups instead.
We are witnessing greatness, and we don't have to wait long to continue with that because the next match is ready to go.
Game 5 of day 1 here in our Major 2 finals. And this is where things could start to get particularly dicey for some of our teams outside of that top 10 threshold of the leaderboard. Even knowing full well that you still have a day 2 to tackle if things don't necessarily go your way, Takata, so many of these teams are just looking to leave on a good note.
Yeah, I mean, like Levin was alluding to, there's no longer that 1.5x point multiplier, so it will be more stable than we've seen previously. But in terms of Vico Venoflixi, they did an amazing job going from 14th to 4th in a single match. So, anything's possible with that big pop-off game. And in terms of Pink, Nebs, and Kiro, they are 11th right now going into this match. So all it could take is one good game and it could put them in the top 5. But it's easier said than done.
If Pink had anything but the SMG there, that is a knock. That is a guaranteed knock to start the match off with. So aim looking crispy. That's for sure. Veno, Vico, and Flixi, though. This is a new sightseeing for them. A little bit more directed towards that brutal boxcars terrain. Cammy, Seti, Hari, if they aren't aware, I'm almost certain that Vico, Veno, and Flixi are going to make their presence known sooner rather than later coming out of the base tunnel.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's not really any trios contesting each other around that side of the map. So are they just going to try and fight Cammy Seti? Or are they kind of, what's their game plan? We'll have to see. But Marius, Pixie, Vanya started off really strong. Now kind of going down a little bit. 8th place on the leaderboard with their most recent match where they kind of got eliminated in 26th. So didn't rack up basically any points at all. Hopefully this time around they can make it at least to the late game.
But look at how tightly they're actually working together. Vanya probably still having some trust issues after what went down in the last match. So this team not looking to take any risk. Instead, they'll look to challenge. Turquise has a full trio season. That's Artie trying to fend for himself. He's gonna fully elect out of this one. And Turquise and Felix off to the side. Gonna provide a little bit of backup, and they needed to because Artie has already been cracked. Medius proving exactly why he is such a dominant fragger in the region.
Yeah, I was wondering, okay, Savage, Reason, and Vidil are on contested now. They do have an elimination, so they're able to, at least get some shots here and there, but their major finals is set up a lot better now than how it was looking leading into the day. Despite that, though, they have quite a bit of work to do if they want to put themselves in the top 10. Look at this.
Ruh-roh.
Look at this.
Oh, no. This is menacing. This is such a menacing look for Vico, Flixi, and Veno. And Swizzy, he's so nonchalant about it, too. He's just like, I'm going to go check this chest. I'm going to go farm these mats. Flixi just barging down the door, though. Swizzy completely trapped like a mouse in a cage. He's got nowhere left to run except into the waiting hands of Veno, Vico, and Flixi, but it's not without a fight. He'll at least get the knock onto Flixi, and that could open the avenue, but instead Mustache immediately pounced on. We thought he was going to be the big backup needed, but Vico has other plans in store. 2 eliminations immediately piling up here at Seaport City, and a massive blow to Queasy.
One quick shot was enough. They wanted to take that engagement quickly because they knew it was a 2v2, but got a little ahead of themselves. Don't know what's next for Queasy here, but for Camiseti Hari, they're getting the fight against Cringe Kiduo. But Hari's left all alone now. They've got Volko eliminated, but the 2v1 is not an easy one to get out of.
Okay, this is so disastrous right now, though, for some of our leading teams on the leaderboard. Hari just looking to scurry away. Cringe, Kiduo, they might have other plans in store. Cringe starting to build up, trying to chase him out. He wants this final elimination if he can get it. He might even just opt to cut off the reboot ban, but Kiduo, even with the Mythic Pump, doesn't feel comfortable with fighting Ari outright. Cringe, much healthier. He's gonna leave it up to his teammate to make sure that they can close up this fight, and nearly a comeback moment there for Hardy. But it's just not enough. Cringe and Kiduo will be the survivors, and just going to wait before playing for the reboot, because Cringe recognizes immediately after the fact Wox and Ping just too close in the vicinity. Cringe, he's just gonna, he has to just play next to Kiduo, though. The double reboot will at least be faster. I feel so bad, though, for Volko and what he's about to drop into.
Will he be able to make it out? The ramps come through from Cringe, trying to do what he can to help his teammate, but didn't even look at him. And he was already on the ground. He almost spawned on his knees, basically, in the dirt. As Wox and Ping just continue to do damage here. They don't have Malabuka close by, so they're not going to take this fight, but hey, they got the knock. It would have been nice to get the points from the Elim, but you take what you can get.
No reason to be so greedy early on. It's the third-party risk that is the primary reason why we see Malabuka, Wox, and Ping leaving after finding that initial knock onto Volko. They don't need to overextend. Queasy, meanwhile, sat underneath Shining Span. And this is tough scenes. Even a mastermind like Queasy is gonna have such a tough time working his way out of this one. Khabib, Akira, Kurama, they are fully aware of the fact that there was someone sat underneath their bridge. They don't want to let Queasy go. Khabib opting to just continue chasing one direction from the next. Queasy still somehow, some way alive, despite everything. Yeah. And maybe it's Akira's team that will get the elimination credit. Maybe it's the responsibility of someone elsewhere in the lobby now, because Queasy has finagled his way out of this one.
For how long, though? As I mean, so far there's nobody else here. A little bit of extra loot, but I mean, the good news is it's kind of good and bad news. Good news in the sense that they did pull zone around Seaport. Bad news meaning that there's always going to be players around you now. So if you even want to get that reboot, eyes are going to be on you. Might even be worth it to kind of go out of zone to look for it. But yeah, not fun.
Just going from bad to worse. As far as for game 5 here in Queasy's terms, Janus for Strokey and Focus probably pretty happy with that elimination they just picked up. They don't mind spending a little bit of extra time inside of the Storm. So many of our teams today have opted to play this exact strategy out. The early Storm tick damage not really being much of a threat, with so many heals kind of scattered across the map. And the opportunity, again, you always have to keep your head on a swivel for those teams looking for the early reboots.
Yeah, I'm for Strokey, Janus, and Focus here. I mean, they've already positioned themselves so deep in the zone. It's kind of just like a slower, safer route here. I drop Sky and Scroll up against Marius, Vanya, and Pixie. Now, they can look for the 3-2-1 here, but gets spot on, gets caught off guard. Is this going to be a full commit? I think it is, Taco.
They don't really have much of a choice. I drop Sky and Scroll. Where they want to go next, they're going to have to clear out this team, but Hydra dropped. in the process here. Pixie, Vanya, despite losing Medius, they're still holding their own. And Sky, Scroll, we've seen how well that pair can actually operate. And for good reason, Pixie and Vanya, they're just gonna elect to fall back. I'd rather make a play for the reboot van over by Withy Wharf. 3 is always going to be better than trying to make it out as a duo, especially this early on.
Taking a look at kind of how that ended up happening. Scroll is lining up his shot there, big pump. But for Swizzy and Merstash, they are back in the game once again. Queasy did choose to go outside of the storm despite being in to get that safe reboot at Kappa Kappa. And this is kind of where it begins, right? This is where the hard mode FNCS starts, as they have to find everything already at third zone. They need to get their loot, they need to get their tags, their mats, and they have such a limited amount of time. Sometimes you just have to kind of set yourself up for a refresh. How do you find that refresh? As maybe just farming and looting won't be enough.
But when you think about the other teams in the lobby, have to direct your focus towards Thomas, Panzer, and Uppel, because they're not going to have to worry about Queasy, Swizzy, and Merstash holding things down inside of Seaport City. They're actually going to be the ones fully in control of the way that these southern position teams are actually making their way into the next zone. Could be a big part of the reason why we see Thomas HD holding things down, and that Mythic drum gun, he's been packing quite a punch with it all day long. And when you are Queasy's team and you're stuck at Kappa Kappa and you have to find damage, surely Thomas knows it. He's more than happy to stick around. He can even spot out that there's still at least some form of a team in Seaport, but he's got his eyes targeted already towards that direction from Kappa Kappa. You have to anticipate that that's Queasy.
And you know, when he's got the drum hunt gun in hand, this is just not where you want to be as Queasy's trio, as scuffed as they are, now forced. I mean, Thomas, Panzer, and Uppel have so many heals, they can just sit there, basically until Queasy and them get eliminated the storm, so we'll see how that one plays out. It's going to be a slow one, I'm sure. Vico, Venom, and Flixie, though, solid start.
And they're also not the only team close by to Seaport, but other teams don't seem to want to stick around. Can't blame them. Vico, Flixie, Veno, we're going to start heading towards the rooftops, also making use of the vending machines available inside of Seaport. But Fnatic might have gotten mixed up with Mr. Savage's team. Marius, Pixie, Vanya also still having to deal with Tripburn potentially. Cranking their way up the hill face. So many of our leading teams just in these awkward positions across the map.
Yeah, I mean, some of them calculated, though. I mean, if I'm Vanya, Marius, Pixie here, I'm not focused on getting to zone super quickly. You've seen them time and time just kind of playing these storm battles. And once again, what they kind of want to focus on is just not getting eliminated, right? After going down 26 in the last match. Just kind of want to take shots on the people rotating through. Continue to see how these zones play out. Continue to wrap around. And, you know, if they get enough damage here, then they should be good by just wrapping around the least congested side of the zone, around side of the water on the left side here. But gotta be careful, the tags are coming through. I mean, Vanya almost getting cracked, just a matter of time.
They also just don't want a repeat of what happened in Major 1. They were so close to having that global championship spot fully locked in, and the lights were just too bright in the final hours. But more slots opening up for Major 2 finals, and that's a seat on the battle bus that Vanya, Pixie, and Marius, everyone is expecting them to live up to the hype this season and find that global championship wall. It can put a lot of pressure indirectly, and yet, so far today, they have managed to deliver.
Championship quals. I want to see Queasy take home a major. I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen Queasy win an FNCS. but you know, odds are in his favor this time around. I think it's been 2 chapters, literally. But they've made it into the zone despite being held by Thomas, Uppel, and Panzer. But now, guess what? You got a whole other trio once again from the start of the game. Vico, Veno, Flixi. Got to be the ones taking shots onto them. They just cannot catch a break, but it's even, honestly, a miracle that they're still alive at this point. But being 263 below, I think literally their only option is going to be take this fight, and this is not going to be an easy one to win.
Look, this is Queasy's backyard, and they've got to try and duke their way out of it. They have to take this fight, though, Takada, because you're right, that 207 below damage threshold, 2-3 eliminations would be a big turnaround for this team, and Merstash trying to get the party started. Queasy, though, he'll be the first to fall. Swizzy right after the fact. Too many optimal angles in favor of Vico's team, and they're just closing in onto Merstash. Nowhere left to run. A clean wipeout at Seaport City, which is going to set up Vico, Veno, and Flixi excellently for the remainder of this match. Probably more than happy. They knew exactly what they were getting by sticking around here at Seaport. They knew Queasy would be way too tempted to revisit his starting point.
It was difficult for Queasy, though, to come out on top, to be fair. All odds were against them. Now 2 of our top 5 trios are out of the match before we even get into the late here. Just opens up much more of an opportunity for the trios on the borderline to make something happen. Frankie was talking about it on the desk. There's 5 global championship spots up for grabs, but we've already got 2 of the trios that qualified last major in that top 5, so it's basically top 7. And now's the kind of opportunity to push yourself into that top 7 with a lot of these top trios having gone down so early. As I love the rotate coming through.
It's a crazy rotate.
You know, and Pablo, yeah. I like it, though.
They've got so much damage above the threshold, though. And by making this approach from that dead side of zone, Takada, they'll also be able to probably box up on some of these hills. Maybe even take advantage of any teams that might be looking to pay a visit towards Rift Island. Just steadily keeping their heads above water, that's for sure. Sky, eye drop, scroll, though. Much different story at Pump Power. Decent amount of congestion now starting to pool from that western edge of zone. Sky, drop, and scroll, though. They're just making sure to keep looking back. Ping Walks and Malabuka could be in a world of trouble here on this next rotate. They're getting a little bit sandwiched between Fincheck's team and Sky's. Zara also definitely wishing that they'd gotten a move on a little bit sooner, but it's tough when you got to go cross country for some of these zones.
iDrop, Sky, and Troll cannot afford another game where they go down early. They got 3rd and 4th in the first 2 matches, but 13th and 21st in the most recent. They cannot keep going down before making it to this late game, but Sky's going to be able to pick up some much-needed tags. As we look on over at Marius and Vanya, they've lost Pixie, but in the close quarter combat, back and forth engagements, I mean, they get the damage they need, but Vanya has no shields. They're kind of split up here. Sangeld knocking on the door, wanting some of the action. Now long rotate to go as well. This is not looking too bright for Vanya and Marius.
Just the worst kind of neighbors. People that you don't want boxed up next to you. People that are already boxed up above you. Misha trying to get some suppressive fire onto those lower layers, trying to get a little bit of extra damage if possible. Demas, Darm, and Pix, though, they're already making sure to try and scale some of those mountain faces. Good deal, Reason and Mr. Savage, same mentality in mind, but they're just a step behind the rest of this lobby. They might become the focal point if they're not careful. Gonna opt to use, get that gold rush effect from their splashes. This could be a big fight, though, for Vidil's team to clean up on. They recognize that it's Vanya largely leading the charge on this one, trying to get the final knockoff onto Peterbor, who's looking to escape, but Vanya, he just has to keep reloading. He doesn't have any ammunition, at least not for those initial shots. And he does finally get the elimination he was after from the start. It's just so much time expended, and the clock is ticking against him.
Marius got the siphon, but it wasn't enough. It's a long route back in for iDrop, Sky, and Scroll, though. It's looking like once again they get taken out. 20th. This is not where they can... They just cannot keep getting eliminated here if they want to hold their position. I mean, third place now, probably bumped out. You only have 2 trios in the top 5 still up. And one of them, Vico Venoflixi, literally clutched themselves back into it in the last match. This is going to be a big shakeup in terms of the leaderboard, depending on how this one plays out.
Did catch a glimpse, though, of Panzer, Uppel, and Thomas in a much separate corner for the rest of the zone. All those other teams that are going to start getting caught amongst each other. This could be the prime time to strike. Thomas has so many builds, decent amount of shield to work with. You can almost expect that Panzer and Uppel are in very similar predicaments, and sure enough, kind of just looking for openings. Frenek exposed for a moment, that's all they need. A couple of nice tags in, shields have been cracked, but Uppel doing a great job at making sure that he either follows up with his team or looks down from a separate angle entirely, just to ensure that no one is challenging their current position. Still, at some point, they're going to have to deal with Chicho and Atris up and height.
Yeah, if the zone pulls towards them as well, that is going to be a perfect high ground for them to hold, as this next zone is that half in, half out, where half the zone is in the zone, half is out. Vico Venoflixi, though, doing a great job. Continuing to take shots on the trios that have to kind of rotate up the mountain in a sense. So doing the damage, doing what you can. But now for these next 10 seconds, it's locking in. Wherever this zone pulls, you got to be ready to act quickly. As now, it's just a matter of time before either Chicho or Horace are very happy or very sad as Savage goes down.
Savage fans are definitely depressed witnessing that one. But that's not to say that Badil and Reason couldn't make some magic happen here. Badil was hoping to get the shot. Instead, he had to go for the reload. 61 below. He's just so stressed for time. He'll at least be able to get one layer up, but he can't afford another tick of Surge. And sure enough, shut down before he even really has a chance to begin. Reason will try and play out the last of this Chug Jug, trying to see if he can buy a little bit more placement spots, but it's just not enough. Too much pressure coming in from the underbelly of Demon's Dojo. Vico, Flixi, Veno, they're gonna start working their way out from all these pre-existing builds, just breaking through whatever layers they have to. For Doxy, Thomas, both of these teams had elevated themselves prior to all of these blows taking place in those mid and lower layers, and it might be paying off tenfold, at least for Thomas's team.
Oh yeah, despite only being 16 above, they are in prime position to find more shots. You can see how many trios are staggered behind. The ones up above are capitalizing on that. Almost 1,000 damage. This is perfect for them, but they have to be ready to continue building forwards depending on where this zone goes. But so far, nobody seems to be contesting it.
Sometimes everything just clicks, but Noya definitely aware of the fact that you can never get too comfortable on height. Meanwhile, Thomas just spraying all the teams trying to approach from the backside of zone. And he's done a decent job at taking some chunks out of Pink's HP bar. Might have even caused some serious issues for that trio. But you can't stay fixated on the same spot for too long. You've got to get a move on when it is dealing with hoistering up on these elevated positions. And Noya nearly getting chopped at his demise there. Misha and Yasin now gonna look to play fallback. But the height control is what they're after. It's just dealing with the swarm of teams underneath them.
The zone just pulled too far. I don't think they have the mats to continue with that height control. So many trios can contest it now. Vico Venoflixi being one of them, but so far they're focused on getting that damage. They know they can potentially look for it, but they have their priorities straight. Shots coming through to the players down below, looking to see what they can find. Such a difficult zone to hold on above, so Veno drops down. Big crack coming through. They have to regroup. Thomas HD up above still. Akira gets knocked down by Veno. His whole trio without shield, though. They have to regroup and build up that shield again.
Cringe, Volko, and Kiruo, they've been making attempts all day long to try and overtake height. And while every previous lobby before has just not worked out, and Volko, he tries to drop. Instead, he gets eliminated for it. Thomas, Uppel, Panzer now dealing with the former leaders of Height, but Thomas, he's getting absolutely pounced upon. Noya's team just dealing so much damage. Misha has fallen. Thomas will get the Siphon, but he needs an opportunity to heal, and he won't be able to find it just yet. But another Siphon with that Elim onto Noya just extends a moment longer.
Chug splashes, Chug Jug, everything needed to stay in the zone. Thomas should be able to make it back, but it looks like up above in the clouds, the high ground is looking secure. The issue is, once again, they cannot be stopped. Malibuca, Ping, and Walks prime position ahead of zone on the low ground. All three players up. Incredible amount of materials, shields, loot, everything needed to continue to close this one out. But Pink, Nebs, and Kiro, they weren't in qualifying range for the Globals going into this match. They were outside of that top 10. This win could mean everything to them.
This is their conversion opportunity. Kiro, Nebs, Pink, they don't want to let it slip through their fingers. Vico, Veno, they're going to have to power through this, though, as a duo. Flixie, having been eliminated in all of the mayhem that's unfolding inside of these low ground layers. Veno, Vico, split for just a moment. Demas right above, but he's not going to go through the floor just yet. He's not going to look for that seize opportunity of another elimination. Walks, Ping, Malibuca, one of our only healthy-looking trios in this lobby, and they might be able to extend that one pace further if they can get this elimination onto Cringe. He's building for his life. Surely his materials are running thin, but it doesn't matter because Malibuca, he's taking notice. Pablo Wingo gonna be collected in the crossfire here, and now Malibuca, Walks, Ping, they're just back up above, staring directly into Cringe.
Kiro, the only one up above now. Both of his teammates went down, as now he's forced to make that decision. How is he going to play this one out? One Chug Jug in the inventory, but does he know there's a full trio down below looking healthier than ever? Chug Jug gets picked up, Water Sprite in hand. Has he already begun the heal off, as now the hunt is what's going to continue? Cringe down below, just one shot away, but Walks knows he has to take this position from the player up above. Chug Jug being used. Malibuca's gone down. It's now a two-person game.
But there's still so much Chug Jug left to work with, and Kudo, he's only a solo. He's getting chopped right now as we speak. Walks, Ping, have they got what it takes to find the first victory royale of the day for this trio? Cringe, scrambling as he may, he will finally be eliminated. And Kudo, all the way inside the storm, he's gonna make a leap of faith here, see if he can cause some disruption. But it's a 2 versus 1 Takada, and it's one that Ping and Walks are gonna win. Victory royale finally setting in here for Malibuca's team on the day.
It was only a matter of time. 2 second places, 4th place, now the victory royale. This trio is looking unstoppable. They always get to the late game, all three players up, healthy. Not only are they already qualified to the Global Championship, they want to do it again, Taco.
Yeah, Mini Hater as the biggest motivator, it would seem, for Ping, Walks, and Malibuca. But certainly a phenomenal performance, a great job. As the height was definitely a little bit messier than what they would have hoped for, but they did what they needed to, Takada. They were confidently securing these eliminations. We've seen them be a scrappy team throughout the course of today's matches, so it comes as no surprise that they were able to find their victory royale. And sure, it might be the first one, but they were already in the lead. This is just going to put that one step further for the rest of the lobby. So Frankie, Levin, Mini, what have you got for us?
I mean, Mini Miner, what have you got for us? Was that good enough for you?
Well, it's not an ideal performance, I don't think. I mean, Malibuca there wasn't alive at the end, right? They weren't a full trio. Yeah, you know, you want to be having a full trio alive at the end. No, I'm joking, of course. Great performance from these guys, as always. It seems like they're just continuing to pile on these ideal performances one after another, and they just seem like an unstoppable force right now. The way that they're able to play these end games is so good. Even if they're not in the ideal position, we saw them in this game, not on height, the zone pulling over the hill. We've seen the story end in so many different ways, or so many the same way, so many different times where, yeah, it's the team on low ground just get squeezed out, the team on height win it. But these guys are just able to tank that storm so well, get up on that hill and just do what they do best, which is find eliminations and then ultimately find that victory royale.
I mean, again, I said it when we talked about them last. I'll say it again. We are witnessing an all-time FNCS performance right now. Their consistency to just make it to this final moving has been mental. Like, genuinely unbelievable levels. Soon as Game 6 wraps up, I know all the VOD reviewers, I'm sure Reese, my good friend Reese, he's going to be straight into the VODs. You know, he's going to pump out that video, how these guys are winning every single, you know, it's going to be something like that because their performance has just been terrific.
Yeah, it has.
I mean, it's been, yeah, no, go right ahead.
No, I mean, I was just going to reiterate it. I mean, just, yeah, the way they've been able to play has been absolutely excellent today. It just seems like they haven't really missed their beat. They did have a little, you know, that 7th place game, as I mentioned earlier, not ideal, but of course, you know, that is just, you know, being overshadowed by the ability of these guys in endgame, and just to find yet another great top 3. Are they going to be stopped? I mean, you know, the zones have played in their favor so far today, so that's the only asterisk I would put next to it. So, you know, feel free to post that and clip that everywhere. But it's one of those where, will they be able to keep it up? I hope so, and I think they can.
Can they do it if, say, they get contested? Because Vico, Veno, and Flixie, they haven't been to Lone Wolf Lair yet. So, you know, we'll have to wait a few minutes to find out, because we've got to take a break. When we come back, we'll be breaking down more of the action from Game 4. Welcome back to FNCS Europe. This is the Major 2 Grand Finals, and I cannot believe this, but we've only got one more game left of day 1. But before we get into our last battle bus boarding, we've got to talk about everything that happened in Game 5. Starting off with some sneaky Seaport City imposters. Yes, I'm talking about Vico, Veno, and Flixie11, but let's start at the end game and how far they got. Are they picking up the pace, would you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, they were already one of the top teams in terms of eliminations today, even with some of their mishaps in mid-game. But their ability to make it to endgame in these last couple and still get a bunch of eliminations as well is just catapulting them up in those standings. Their biggest problem, Mimi Miner, is that a lot of their game plan in terms of just sort of just doing this teeny strat type thing sort of relies on like the fact that like nobody else is going to be super consistent, right? Because like if nobody else had been super consistent today, if Malibuca hadn't been as consistent as they had been and maybe a bit more inconsistent like they showed in previous competitions, you know, we'd more be talking about Vico and them in contention to win while doing this strat. But because they've had Malibuca's team just be so consistent in every single game today, it's made it so there is a bit of a gap there, but still, I love that they're finding their feet with this strategy. I can't wait to see how it evolves tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I mean, how do you stop that, right? You land on Malibuca and try and stop them getting a good performance, right? That's hopefully what we'll see from these guys if they do go down that route. But I mean, look at them. Second place, 290 points, just off the back of a really solid game. You're absolutely right. If Malibuca, Wox, and Ping weren't doing so great, they'd probably be first place right now. The strategy's definitely working. I'm interested to see whether they'll be able to continue that, of course. You know, where do they land now? A lot more teams and a lot more players are going to be more aware of what they're doing. So they're going to really look back at what they're doing in terms of their loot path and rethink a few different things. But I mean, this was great.
Yeah, this was really the culmination of sort of what we were expecting to see, because they were doing the strat on a bunch of teams in areas where they weren't some of the big names, the top dogs. But here, against Queasy, sneaking into Seaport, they didn't wait for him to come through the door. They realized Swizzy was in the building. They realized he had nowhere to go. If they just ran in and blocked him off with bills, they had the time to get to him. But look at this shot here from Vico. Look at it. Back. Wow. Oh my goodness. Oh, this is nasty. Look, and if you know Vico, you know he just like calmed dead like 3 times in a row. Like that's max volume after that one. Queasy was able to escape, so they stayed in the game. But again, it's moments like this where you're right, Mini. If they do that to Queasy's trio at Seaport, do they have something cooked up like that for Lone Wolf Lair as well later down the line? We kind of just don't know. What a game that was, though, to start off.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if this is because the zone was in the favor of Seaport, but these guys, they stuck around and then they literally team wiped Queasy's trio later on in the game, in the mid game. So I'm just wondering now, do Vico, Venom, and Flixie look at the teams that are above them? And right now it's just Mali's team, and they go for them and they ruin their start of the game, their early game, I should say, Mini.
Yeah, I mean, that would be what I would love to see them do, and I'm sure everyone would say the exact same. What a great performance that would be going into day 2, right? If they can just kind of claw back a few of those placements off of Malibuca and then catapult themselves up into first place, or maybe even just closer to second there, or closer to first, that would be absolutely fantastic.
Now, there is something that's happened every single game, and I'm not talking about Malibuca making it to the end game. I'm talking about Thomas getting his Tommy gun, the drum gun, and then every single game we have seen the observers cut to Thomas, ADR, and getting an elimination.
This here, though, he should never survive here. This was ridiculous. He should be eliminated here every single time. How he lives here is just classic Thomas HD. Aim's insane. Drum gun, unbelievable. I mean, I've loved what I've seen from this team. It's funny because I called it out last time, Mini. In terms of eliminations, like total eliminations compared to some of the other top teams, it's like they weren't doing amazingly. Before the last game, it was only like 15. Yeah. But yet you could guarantee that when it comes to damage dealt, they would be top 3. And they were, right? They were third going into the last game damage. Thomas is #1 in damage individually of all the players in the lobby so far. Just keep it up, boys. It's been so fun to watch.
Damage does not guarantee you the victory royale. It does not guarantee you top 5, but can it guarantee them a spot in the Global Championships? We're going to find out, because we're going to go back to our casters, Taco and Takata, for our final game of day 1.
Thank you, Frankie. Look, you said it yourself. It might not guarantee the win, but if you're able to get into that top 5, top 7, depending how it's playing out, you can get yourself a spot in the Global Championship. Pink and his trio currently in 7th place now, despite being 11th going into the last match. It's those moments, Taco, that kind of put you in and set you up. 1 game is left out to be played out today. We still have another 6 tomorrow, though, so don't worry, but the battle bus is ready, so let's get into the last match of the day.
And one of the primary differentiating factors, though, for our teams that are in 1st and 2nd of the leaderboard, Takata, is their elimination count. Malibuca and Veno's trio have just been on a tear all throughout these matches here today, and it's crazy when you really boil it all down, because a team like Venos that hasn't even been as consistent as Malabukas in terms of placement, and yet they are still matching each other so steadily with their elim count. It is making it very difficult for some other teams to try and play catch up or even just stay close in the first place. Outlaw Oasis is maybe going to get popping pretty soon there with Ziandi and Finchek. Vico trying to get the party started though. Onto Twy, Abahalo looking directly at Flixie, but Vico pays the price. Veno now trying to get the turnaround. Veno with the left side peek though. It's not where he wanted to be, and they're gone from the lobby. Day one conclusion, and our second place team is down and out for the count. Malabuka walks in, ping, the ball is in your court.
This is what Levin was talking about. Vico, Veno, Flixie, they can get those 18 elim, those 11 elim endgames, even wins. But when they have that risky early game, when they can go down in 26th, 27th, and now the first trio to go down, basically, those 0-point matches, it's gonna make it too difficult to keep up with a trio like Ping, Malabuka, and Walks that literally their worst placement is 7th. And not only that, now looking at Marius and Vanya too with a quick 3-piece at Flooded, being surprise conned. I don't know, Taco. This is gonna be interesting going into day 2. A lot of preparation is gonna be happening for Vico, Veno, and Flixie. They have to decide what their main goal is, right? Does Veno want to continue with what he said about going 4 for 4, all 3 majors and global champs? If that's the case, they gotta find a way to stop Malabuka, or do they just want to claim the best placement possible?
I'm just not over the fact that it's Abahalo, Noms, and Twy for back-to-back matches now that have been such a nuisance towards Veno's team. Everybody thought it was going to be Savage, Vidal, and Reason who would have to worry about that trio. Instead, it's seemingly Veno's issue to deal with. But looking into day 2, we've got to close up day 1. First and foremost is iDrop. He's got to provide a little bit of support here now for Scroll. Sky, iDrop, hoping to get the double revive. Ziandi barging through on the other side of the wall, but iDrop with a not-so-friendly shot. It's going to force Ziandi to back up a step or two. And Ziandi, he was hoping to get away. Could be looking to be knocked. iDrop can't find the final closing shots. Sky still on the chase though. He wants this pursuit of Ziandi.
I'm sure he could find it too. Now, the shot comes through. Ziandi goes down. He just looked at him, didn't even take a shot back. He's like, all right, I'll accept it.
I really thought he was more covered. It's just the way that Sky made that approach. I feel for Ziandi in that kind of position.
Unfortunate. You know, it's okay though. iDrop, Sky, and Scroll have been slowly dropping down. I mean, they were leading the pack with the 3rd and 4th place in the start of the day, but they haven't broken top 10 since then. 21st, 13th, 21st again. So hopefully they can kind of figure out this issue in the later part of the mid games. But so far it's looking like it's starting out quite strong. And you know, the good news is that Vico, Veno, and Flixie aren't here to catch Swizzy off guard like in the last match, so they can continue playing their kind of, you know, uncontested route here at Seaport. And hopefully I'd like to see Queasy get a big game here to kind of bridge that gap right now that's from 3rd to 2nd and 1st place. One big game from them would be enough to do so.
It's just such a bittersweet outcome though, because Veno's team caused so many issues. And we'll continue that in a moment. Got to see what happens first with iDrop as he takes out Ju. Waiting. Whether or not Finchek has managed to actually escape the vicinity is a totally different conversation. It does appear as though he's made it out. Maybe he'll be able to go for the reboot and bring Ju and Ziandi back into this one, but iDrop, Sky, Scroll, they seem adamant to try and chase out that solo.
Ivan not in the best of situations here with, what, half HP, no shields. Cade, on the other hand, looking a bit healthier over at Kappa Kappa.
Oof. I mean, they need a bigger performance here at Takada and Cade. Just one shot too many He's going to be forced to disengage entirely. Cheatin and Robin. They've got an ample amount of heals to work with. Trexer now continuing to just lay waste to some of those builds that we saw teams trying to hole up in. But southern segment of Kappa Kappa, one thing's for sure, Dexy's team is not going to be able to go anywhere near it. Ivan, Arya, and Kay, they're just also trying to be wary. Teams that are going for these distinct fights on the off spawn. And then you've got teams like Pablo, Ferdoxy, and Chino facing up and what's essentially become known as the Bermuda Triangle. That's what it feels like, Takata, because the surge bases that have taken place here, they literally just form a perfect triangle.
It's crazy how that works, yeah. As the shots continue to come through. It'll be peaceful for now, though. I mean, they're just going to continue doing the damage that they're looking for. Malabuk in a similar situation. No worries, though, to kind of fight. You can see behind Walks, you saw all the loot they have stacked up. What's so interesting about Walks, though, is he has the most assists in the matches today at 44. And the player leading behind him is Malabuka with 30, and then Ping with 29. I mean, it just shows how well this trio has been playing together. They're always up, they're always helping each other, and they're literally the last trio standing in basically all these games, fighting it out in those final moments. So, you know, the consistency is deserved by how well this trio has been performing. But to get to that point, you know, you have to have solid early games, you have to have solid mid games, and they've done that every single match.
Hey, Malabuka did say 0 ping diff a while back. The moment that we knew that trio was headed to boot camp together in Germany. And when you're leading the lobby by 100 points and then some for day one, it definitely distinguishes, you know, just what kind of impact they've sort of had today as a team. That chemistry really starting to flow amongst them. Other teams, though, still looking to try and overtake at least each other on the leaderboard. Second place especially, potentially being up for grabs since Veno's team was eliminated so early on. And a team like Sky Scroll Eyedrop, they definitely want to be included in that conversation, but it's not going to be an easy mission just because you say it out loud. That doesn't exactly put the you know, the play.
Yeah, it's interesting though. They already have, you know, 3 eliminations. They don't need to risk too much more. They have, you know, the pros of having the heals too. This part of the map, especially the west side, with so many teams contesting each other, it's one of those clusters that ends up having a bunch of players just staying in the zone and playing out their mid game, taking shots at each other, and later on making the rotates when it's already closer and closer to that end game. But what a shot from Scroll. Close that one out.
Just being Storm Warriors, essentially. You can find those early eliminations, but those late game transitions have proven to be a constant stopping point for that team. And it's something that Marius, Vanya, and Pixie are also trying to make sure that they can overcome. Moneymaker, Faded for 9 here at Canyon Crossing. Seems like they're trying to hunt down Mr. Savage, but Mr. Savage instead, a little bit of a bite back here. Does seem as if the deal had already been claimed earlier on, but Savage just continuing to refuse to give up his current position. He's gonna force Moneymaker and Faded to try and tackle him at the same time, but still manages to just squeeze his way out. They have to worry about other teams in the distance though, and Fnatic maybe even hearing some of that commotion taking place. Moneymaker Faded. They want to get out of Canyon Crossing, but there are just so many teams in front of them looking to do the same thing.
Yeah, it's difficult for all the players here. And Mr. Savage, I mean, they've gotten 3 eliminations or more in every match except for the first one, but they just can't make it into the top 10. They keep getting eliminated in this portion of the match. Well, normally they make it at least to the end game, but not the final moments. Just so difficult to even make it to zone with the way this season's being played out. Like, if you do want to continue with the rotate and you're done kind of with the storm back and forths, it can be difficult with the amount of trios that just kind of waiting for you to rotate on through. That's the thing about these finals lobbies. You know who you're competing against throughout all 12 matches. You know at least a general idea of where they're going to drop and how they tend to rotate. So you can really base the playstyle around not only how the matches play out throughout the day, but also how they've previously played out to kind of stop these rotates, look in the feed, depending on who gets eliminated, who gets knocked. You can base your playstyle around that. Scavi, though, look like they're going to bring Teeny back in.
Hard-fought victory, finding the knock, and then clean elimination onto Volko. Cringe didn't get to actually finish that elimination. So, well played to Teeny's trio to bring him back into the action, but just looking at where the zone is pulling towards Takata, this is full benefits for Malibuca, Ping, and Wox. They're kind of just waiting for these teams from that southwest section. As they trickle through, you know that they're going to be a little bit more beat up than some of these other teams that might have already been based towards that northern position. And Sky, iDrop, Scroll, they seem to be doing a lot of elimination clearing, but it's not necessarily putting themselves into a position where they can confidently try to just charge through that mid-map territory. They know that there are teams like Malibuca, Ping, and Wox just controlling too much of the flow of the lobby.
I mean, that's the pros of having that many heals, though, and, you know, Storm only taking 1 damage per second here. They can make that decision to wrap all the way around despite it taking longer, and then not have to have the risk of, you know, the trios that are already based up kind of looking back. Malibuca, Ping, Wox at Floodgate. I mean, they're looking all right, but the zone is pulling a bit more east than some of the previous matches.
This also isn't anything like what we saw throughout the group stages, right? When it came down to that final lobby, we saw teams just kind of ripping through each other. They were just trying to start and finish fights as quickly as they could, and yet, because teams know there's still a whole 6 matches to work through in day 2, there's no point multiplier to, you know, deal with either. We don't want to cut ourselves short in day 1. That's a big part of the reason why we see teams still trying to be as calculated as ever.
Yeah, you're not like in the last match of a Div Cup or something, you're just like trying to do what you can no matter what. All the extra aggression, it is still being played out. Like when the day started, Podesai Xyz and Art Skill. Nice little rotate through Malibuca's builds. They don't want to fully follow though, as they will be able to look back at them.
Ooh. I mean, you send shots forward and you're not in zone. It's only a matter of time before somebody else decides to shoot back, right? No, Riley just taking advantage of the situation. Podesai gave away his team's position, but Xyz getting straight to the punch here. Noah Riley has to immediately retreat to TrueLex's surge base, find a little safety net with the rest of his trio, but that leaves Malibuca, Ping, and Wox to just continue their rotation undisturbed, because now TrueLex's team, they're staring down at Podesai's.
Emi said Ihari. They got that VR, but it's kind of been a downward hill or slide from them since 12th to 32nd. Hopefully this time around they can figure something out. I like how kind of looted up, kitted up they are to play this one out. They're going to quickly choose to rotate. The zone didn't really pull towards them.
Even when you find a Victory Royale in a major finals, ooh, Seti definitely in some trouble. Saw his shields get cracked there. But it's difficult to retrace your steps and to consistently create those winning positions, especially when you're just at the mercy of the way that the zones are going to be pulling. And while a lot of them have played probably a little bit more towards Camiseti and Hari's hand, they're not the only team that's been in a similar position. Swizzy, Queasy, Merstash, they're trying to make up for lost time after an early exit, or at least it felt like an early exit in Game 5, because they never really had a chance to get their feet underneath them after Veno's initial play. But now they get to take their time. They get to dictate how they want their Game 6 to go.
And this is a great position to do so, right? You can see just how many trios are still in Seaport that have to make their way through, and you know, it could end up pulling far again, which would give them even a better shot at getting those tags. But look at the positioning from Vanya, Pixie, and Marius. I mean, there's a reason they're 1,800 above the Storm Surge threshold. Part of the factor might be that they have 4 eliminations already, but also
this gotta be illegal somehow.
The whole lobby can't even be chopped down, really. So this is, I mean, if they end up pulling zone here, 8th zone, that is going to be disgusting.
It's messed up. Also have I see some. Not if you're a fan, though, of Vanya's team. Khabib, Kurama, Akira, and nice elimination there for Werix, though. But Twy, that's a solo all the way back. That's what Akira's team is waiting on. And Twy knows better than to try and actually charge straight through. He wants to at least try and play for a couple of eliminations, and yeah, just to look back on what went wrong. Just a team lurking at the bird. And nothing's ever guaranteed in a finals lobby.
6th zone. If this was 7th zone and I was Vanya here, just on the borderline, you know, building metal in could be the method here with that chance to pull back, but there's less odds for it to fully pull back to them being 6th, so didn't quite get the perfect RNG. Pink Nevs and Kiro, though, doing what they can to kind of minimize their risks, put themselves up in a good position here. Good odds for eventually pulling those later zones. Right beside Queasy, though, kind of a bit of a risky place to be, but all their focus is now is getting those shots on the players that have to rotate in. Luckily enough as well for all the ones that were at Seaport, they don't have to move very far at all.
Pink's team is low-key kind of cut off Queasy's, though. They're not going to be able to actually rotate in without having to deal with Pink's trio, I would imagine. And that could be a huge benefit for somebody like Malabuka, who's already taken notice of where Pink's team is based up and just applying some continuous tags, ping and walks. Also trying to take up separate lines of sight. They're in a very nice position, and the congestion that's built up elsewhere, that's going to be something that Thomas, Uppel, and Panzer have to deal with.
And they're chilling now, though. It's kind of just a matter of time. They're waiting to see in these 7 seconds where the zone is going to end up. The good thing is to have ideas of, you know, if it goes here, I can do this. If it goes there, I can do this. Kind of always being prepared. Northwest is going to be the place where it concludes right onto Akira's trio. Here, they might even want to elevate themselves, right, to open up more opportunities, or just take the fight straight on ahead of them. The pre-edits, anything to kind of do a bit of damage, but some sort of decision has to be made. Just 47 above is a little too close to comfort. Nice shots, though. That's going to be very impactful.
But it's shots being applied to teams that are already way out in front of them. So when they start to actually cruise on forward, those teams might have the same idea. Just pay them a couple of tag visits. Swizzy, Queasy, Merstash, they know they can't afford to sit around any longer. We're gonna immediately start trying to be some of the first ones into the next zone. Move too late, get caught up in the pack, move too soon, and everybody that still needs Surge is going to immediately try and tail you in the process. For Doxy, Chino, and Pablo, though, they managed to elevate themselves slightly and playing towards the front side with a little bit of hill advantage here. Sharks team, a little bit pressured, but not enough for Doxy to want to commit to just yet.
711 damage above. I mean, they're in a pretty primed up position here. Not only and damage, but also elevation. Thomas looking good as well. I guess kind of a bit more compact, actually. I thought it was a bit more elevated, but either way, no risks needed for these trios. Unfortunately for the ones that have lost a teammate or are getting knocked or is low, though, it's kind of just free pickings for the ones that are already set up looking back.
Because of the bridge, the congestion is really going to start to build in those mid and low ground layers. Incredible scenes that Twy as a solo is in such a prime spot, though. Not sure how long he'll actually be able to maintain it, but it could definitely be annoying to some of these other teams that are looking to just rotate through. Unscathed, Kiro, Nebs, Pink. One of our teams that could potentially be caught. A little bit more action than what they want. Just trying to heal up off the water sprite. They can tell, though, there's a team in heavy trouble, and they want to secure the body loot. Pix, Darm, eliminate Demas, actually. Eliminated right in front of them. Mixin, Blah, and Comeback, watch. They made such a strong attempt for those eliminations, and they don't even get a benefit from the results.
I like this, Taco. Vanya, Pixie, and Marius looking like they want to play a high ground position here. They're currently in 9th place. They've dropped down out of qualifying range for the Global Championship. Vico, Venoflixi are out, though, from the start of this game. It's a perfect opportunity to put themselves back in. I spoke about it earlier. This is a trio that knows how to convert those top placements to victory royales. They can close out these matches. So hopefully with a bit of good zone pulls, with some nice refreshes, they might be able to make something happen. But the big issue, the raid boss, Malabuka, Ping, and Walks, once again, incredibly healthy as a trio, completely set up to play this one out. Somebody has to stop them, Taco. Somebody has to do it.
Well, that somebody might be the zone pools, because it's bringing them into more traffic than what they'd been hoping for initially, sticking a little bit more towards those lower layers. But same could be said here for Swizzy, Queasy, and Merstache, just completely spraying at the teams right next to them. Gotta be careful, though. From the floor above, it's Twy. Still holding on, but only 187 above. Merstache, Swizzy, Queasy, they've claimed so much space in the low ground. But the way that the zone is starting to pull over the water now, teams are going to be burning through their materials at a rapid rate. Trulex has got to be very careful here for Doxy. Pablo, Chino, trying to get a piece out of some of these teams that are rotating in, but nothing that's translated to a knock for an elimination just yet. Still, where they are currently sat at is a very nice spot to be.
Pablo did an amazing job of tarping ahead while Ferdoxy and Chino were able to take some shots at the back line. Marius, Vanya, Pixie still looking like they have no issues up above. Not a single trio taking shots at them.
Oh my goodness. Wait, Queasy might just get stuck with Thomas, Panzer, and Upple. Marius doesn't care, though. He's in the high ground, and he's trying to maintain that elevated position, but Swizzy, Queasy, Merstache, they're gonna look to maybe make an attempt here for a height take, but first they've got to make sure that they are putting themselves in a position towards that front side of zone, having to use up nearly all of their splashes. The last one finally going to be spent. Thomas, Upple, Panzer, we knew they were going to get caught in the mix here, but didn't expect that it might come at Karama's expense. They'll narrowly avoid getting knocked by Thomas, but Thomas, he still wants more. He still wants to keep going. Pink, Kira, and Nebs as well, just hanging out on the low ground, but Swizzy, Queasy, Merstache, they're trying to chop out height, and they might actually succeed. Vanya, though, gonna finally manage to get the connection towards the front side. Marius will get dropped, but he still had more than enough time to react. He's not gonna lose any HP for it.
Will Queasy give it up? They got the knock, but in the meantime, Malabuka's been shut down. This is the first time we've seen them go down so quickly in this late. Now, Chino, Pablo trying to clutch it up as a duo. High ground looks to be safe for Vanya, still holding on to it as now Pablo's trying to get ahead, doing what he can to keep themselves up. So many materials to work with. He should not take any risks here. Just try and claim as much space as possible. He has to be careful, though, especially if he runs into a full trio, as Swizzy has been left alone. Queasy Merstache gone down, as now Swizzy has to find a way to clutch this out only with
Disaster has struck in the final hours here. Swizzy, we've seen him clutch points plenty of times in the past, though. Whether or not he's able to secure them this go-round is an entirely different story, though. Just so many healthy trios behind and in front of him. Thomas, Uppel, and Panzer, they don't want to allow him to go by, but it's going to be Height that takes notice. Panzer will get the credit for the elimination, but Vanya and Medius, they are having a free day, just spraying everybody in this low ground. Thomas hoping that he could try and charge through. He's just going to play a little bit of defense here for Uppel to reunite with the rest of his team. Marius dropping. Marius trying to get fraggy with it. Gets a chunk out of Panzer's HP bar, and Panzer won't be able to finish. Marius gets the credit for it, and now Pixie on the other end looking to take out Chino and Pablo Wingu.
This is exactly what they needed to put themselves into that top 5. All they need to do is close it out. Pink, Kiro down below. Pablo still in the zone, doing what he can to stay up. The double res is going to come through. Can they do it in time? No! Kiro goes down. Pink's left alone. Marius connects another one. 8 eliminations. How many total has this trio just picked up? Not only do they close out the match, but they do it in style. From 9th place going into this match, I'm sure with that amount of eliminations, the placement points they just got, they have put themselves into qualifying range for the global championship. But not only that, also in prime position to slowly make their way up to that first place spot.
And don't get me wrong, you don't want to get too excited considering that it is just day 1, but Marius